Nini, a fluffy calico cat, greets the morning with a soft, melodic meow. She is a cherished member of a small, quiet household, her presence bringing a sense of warmth to the start of the day. Beside her stands Max, a spirited Shiba Inu who echoes her greeting with a series of enthusiastic barks. Together, these two are more than just pets. They are a precious family to the man who cares for them. The young man watches them eat with a quiet smile, finding solace in their simple joy. He reflects on his life, noting that while he lost his parents long ago and remains single in his 30s, his successful career in electronic sales and the companionship of his pets provide a comfortable, happy existence. He takes a slow sip of his coffee, savoring the familiar, rich flavor as the steam rises from the pot. In the kitchen, the rhythmic sizzle of an egg cooking in a pan fills the air, marking the continuation of his morning ritual. He sits down to enjoy his own meal, a simple piece of toast freshly popped from the toaster. As he eats, he chats warmly with Max and Nini, amused by how quickly they finish their breakfast. The domestic scene is one of pure, uncomplicated contentment, a small bubble of peace before the workday begins. Later, he incorporates his energetic dog into his exercise routine, pushing through a set of push-ups with Max playfully perched on his back. Though it's not a traditional workout, he finds the shared activity enjoyable. Once finished, he gathers his gear and enthusiastically suggests they all head out for their morning walk. They stroll through the quiet neighborhood streets, the dog leading the way on a leash while the cat follows faithfully behind. As they reach a crosswalk, he waits for the pedestrian signal to change, his mind perhaps already drifting toward his responsibilities at work. Suddenly, a violent thud echoes through the air. He spins around, his heart leaping into his throat as a white van looms dangerously close, the sudden sound of impact shattering the morning's tranquility. He drifts in a void of confusion, his thoughts fragmented as he wonders about an unexpected presence. It was supposed to be just the two of them, himself and his companions, and this new development feels like a significant problem. Groaning as he stirs, he clutches his head, the world around him feeling far too loud and bright. He forces himself upright, noticing the unfamiliar weight of his new attire and wondering what tasks remain. Above him, the sky stretches out in a brilliant display of light, the sun's rays piercing through soft, white clouds over a vast, serene landscape. Standing amidst the tall grass of an endless meadow, he gazes at the horizon in stunned silence, his eyes wide with disbelief at the impossible vista. The air he draws in is impossibly clear and fresh, a stark contrast to anything he has ever known. Convinced this must be a vivid dream, he calls out into the emptiness, his voice echoing across the hills as he searches for any sign of life. Suddenly, a small, crowned creature appears before him, greeting him with a cheerful wave. The tiny being wastes no time, bluntly informing him that his previous life ended in a tragic accident and that he has been brought here to this new realm. As he struggles to process the news of his own demise, the creature explains that his very presence has acted as a catalyst, repairing a world that was on the brink of collapse. It claims that he is now the anchor for this reality's harmony, a role granted to him as a token of gratitude for his unintended salvation of their world. With a final, encouraging wave, the small guide tells him to live happily in this restored land, reiterating that the world is now safe because of him. Before he can ask another question, the creature vanishes into thin air, leaving him shouting at the empty sky. He feels abandoned in this strange, beautiful place, pleading for the mysterious guide to return and offer more than just cryptic explanations. Resigning himself to his new reality, he begins to inspect the heavy pack he carries, discovering it is filled with an incredible array of survival gear. From pouches of gold and silver coins to bundles of fabric, dried rations, and even a familiar bar of chocolate, he realizes he has been well equipped for the journey ahead. Taking a moment to enjoy a small piece of the sweet treat, he sifts through the contents of the heavy pack, discovering a treasure trove of survival gear, a lantern, a compact stove, and a kettle. Among the dried rations and rock salt, the aroma of coffee beans catches him by surprise. His eyes widen as he pulls out a familiar percolator, its surface bearing a specific scratch that marks it as the very one he used during his university days, leaving him baffled by its presence in this new world. Continuing his inventory, he finds practical items like spare clothing, which would make camping in the wilderness far more manageable. As he packs, his thoughts drift back to the companions he left behind, Max and Nini, wondering if they are safe and if anyone has stepped in to care for them in his absence. Standing amidst the rolling hills of the unfamiliar landscape, he takes a moment to absorb the finality of his situation, knowing the life he once knew is truly gone. With a resolute breath, he adjusts his pack and decides there is no use in lingering, taking his first tentative steps into the unknown. He is suddenly jolted from his thoughts as a low growl shatters the silence and a massive, dark-furred beast crests a nearby ridge. Panic surges through him as the creature's incredible speed closes the distance in a heartbeat, and he fumbles desperately for the hilt of his sword, his heart hammering against his ribs. Before he can even draw his weapon, the beast is upon him, its jaws agape in a terrifying roar that echoes across the field. He is thrown to the ground, the weight of the predator pinning him down as the cold realization of his own mortality flashes through his mind once more. Instead of the expected strike, he is met with a flurry of wet, enthusiastic licks that cover his face. The massive creature's growls turn into joyful barks, and to his utter bewilderment, a familiar voice cries out, calling him master with unmistakable affection. Gasping for air and still reeling from the shock, he stares up at the towering canine, the realization slowly dawning on him. He tentatively whispers the name of his old friend, Max, hardly daring to believe the creature before him could be the same dog he lost. The giant dog's tail wags with enough force to stir the grass as he confirms his identity, his voice now clear and understandable to his former owner. Overwhelmed with relief, the young man reaches out, the bond between them transcending the boundaries of life and death. As they sit together, the loyal companion recounts how he was on the verge of being sent to a shelter after his master's passing. He expresses his profound gratitude for being saved from a lonely fate and brought to this new realm. They both experience a shared vision of the past, showing the somber scene of a funeral where neighbors discuss the dog's uncertain future. The small, crowned creator explains that because there was no one left to care for the animal, he chose to bring him along, a gesture that filled the faithful dog with immense joy. Max gazes at his master with unwavering loyalty, his voice steady as he vows that this time, they will be the ones to repay the kindness shown to them in their previous life. The young man can only utter his companion's name, his heart swelling with emotion at the dog's profound devotion. Suddenly, a massive, fluffy weight crashes into him, nearly knocking the wind out of his lungs. It is Nini, the cat, who has also undergone a startling transformation in this new realm, letting out a joyous, booming cry as she pounces on her master with feline enthusiasm. He remembers the day they first met back in his old world. She was just a stray found shivering in a cold parking lot. After some deliberation, he had welcomed her into his home, and though Max had a difficult time adjusting to the new arrival at first, they eventually became an inseparable pair under his care. Now, she is larger than life, her fur softer and more voluminous than he ever imagined possible. She nuzzles against him, her voice filled with a fierce affection as she declares that no matter what dangers they face, she will be his ultimate protector. Tears of pure relief well up in his eyes as he pulls both of his loyal friends close, overwhelmed by the impossible miracle of their reunion in this strange, beautiful land. As they celebrate, the small, crowned creature watches from atop Nini's head, remarking on how fortunate it is that they all managed to gather safely. The young man jokingly tells the little guide not to feel left out of the group, while the creature prepares to explain the rules of their new existence. The small guide gestures toward the vast horizon, explaining that while initial supplies and funds have been provided to get them started, any future necessities or luxuries must be secured through their own hard work and merit. He points toward a distant mountain range, advising that the path leads to a major road and a bustling city where the young man can register at the local Adventurers Guild. The idea of officially becoming a Beastmaster strikes the youth as a thrilling prospect, reminiscent of the fantasy games he once played. He voices a sudden concern about the language barrier in this foreign land, but the guide quickly reassures him that the local speech has been magically adjusted to be perfectly intelligible, allowing him to communicate with everyone normally. The creature goes on to explain that they are currently in a parallel world, a realm that shares many foundations with his own but operates under different laws. While the scenery may look familiar, the guide warns that this world is far from the safety he once knew, and they must remain vigilant. He explains the freedom available in this new realm, noting that there are no mandatory roles or quotas to fulfill. He offers various paths, settling down in a home, becoming a master of beasts with apprentices, or simply wandering as a traveler. Hearing these possibilities, the young man looks toward the horizon with a newfound spark of determination. He declares his intent to explore this vast world, his eyes reflecting the bright sky above. Beside him, his loyal companions stand ready, the large dog and the fluffy cat flanking him as they prepare to take their first steps into the unknown. The small, crowned creature then formally introduces himself as Samuel Pylisha, the very architect of this world. While the name carries a divine weight, he assures the group that he will be watching over them, though he admits the title of creator isn't entirely inaccurate. A heavy silence falls over the group as they process this revelation, until the small being asks if they find his presence comforting. The young man tries to maintain his composure, but a sudden, deep rumbling from the earth interrupts the quiet moment. In a blinding flash of power, the tiny creature sheds his modest form, erupting into a colossal, white-scaled dragon that towers over the landscape. The young man recoils in sheer terror, realizing the true, primordial nature of the being standing before him. The dragon's presence is overwhelming, its gaze piercing and ancient, but the young man desperately pleads for the return of the smaller, more approachable form. Sensing the distress, the great beast relents, offering a quick apology for the sudden display of his true self. Once returned to his diminutive state, he begins to lecture on the inhabitants of this world, explaining that besides humans, there are demon beasts and gem monsters. He reveals that gem monsters are unique, reverting to a crystalline state upon defeat to serve as a source of fuel. He further clarifies the distinction, noting that gem monsters are manifestations of energy without physical bodies, whereas demon beasts are primal, flesh and blood creatures. Finally, he explains the economic reality of their situation, pointing out that both the gems and the remains of defeated monsters, meat, skin, and bone, can be sold to the local guild for a significant profit. He offers a final piece of guidance, suggesting that a slime would make an ideal first companion to help carry their heavy gear. He explains that as a beastmaster, the young man has the unique ability to tame both energy-based gem monsters and biological demon beasts. With a cheerful wish of good luck, the small, crowned creature hops away, vanishing as suddenly as he appeared. The group watches him go, and the canine companion steps forward, offering his broad back as a mount to ensure they travel with both speed and safety. The young man is hesitant but eager, accepting the offer as they prepare to set out. He lunges forward with a sudden burst of energy, warning his rider to grip his thick fur tightly to avoid being thrown off. The sudden acceleration catches the young man off guard, his eyes widening in a mix of shock and pure exhilaration as the wind whips past them. He finds himself laughing with joy, marveling at the incredible speed and the thrill of riding across the open plains. The sensation of freedom is overwhelming as they charge toward their first destination, a known den of slimes. With his loyal companions by his side, the journey into this new world has truly begun, fueled by a sense of adventure and the goal of finding their first. Surveying the lush landscape, the young tamer observes the abundance of gem monsters, realizing this forest is the ideal hunting ground for their needs. He discusses the local geography with Jamiel, learning about the nearby hellmouth and expressing surprise at how the inhabitants remain so calm despite the looming crisis threatening their world. Jamiel explains that for the people here, such dangers are simply a part of daily life, leaving the tamer to ponder the resilience of those living on the edge. The young man prepares for his first encounter while his companions step back to give him space, wondering if the local slimes are intimidated by their presence. He reassures Jamiel, confidently treating the upcoming skirmish as a simple tutorial to test his skills. The rabbit companion agrees to guide him through the basic maneuvers, emphasizing that this is the perfect opportunity to learn the ropes of combat in this new environment. Suddenly, a slime lunges from the brush. He draws his blade instinctively, but Jamiel shouts a frantic warning. It is a rare gem slime that must not be harmed, forcing him to check his strike midair. Having successfully cornered the trembling creature, he offers it a choice, gently asking the small, gelatinous being if it would like to join his journey as a companion. The slime responds with a brilliant, shimmering glow and a cheerful greeting, formally accepting him as its master. He is momentarily stunned, not just by the acceptance, but by the creature's surprisingly high-pitched and melodic voice. It begins to pulse with a soft light, its form expanding slightly as it levels up through their new bond. He watches in fascination as the creature demonstrates its latent potential, sensing the growth of its magical power. Jamiel then explains the intricacies of the storage and preservation abilities that the tamer can now utilize. To test this, the young man places a harvested gem into a shimmering magical void, noting with satisfaction how the item remains perfectly preserved and easily accessible within the mystical space. He marveled at the utility of his new skill, watching as a simple cup vanished into his dimensional storage. The realization that items remained perfectly preserved and clean was a revelation. Turning to his new gelatinous friend, he discussed the potential of its purification abilities, wondering if multiple monsters could share the same storage space without issue. With a bright smile, he officially welcomed his two newest companions into the fold. He decided to call the clear, shimmering one Aqua, while the soft pink one received the name Sakura. The two slimes wobbled happily, seemingly pleased with their new identities. As the group continued their journey through the lush forest, he began organizing their roles to maximize efficiency. He designated Sakura to handle all food-related storage, while Aqua would be responsible for everything else. With his loyal canine companions by his side, he felt a growing sense of confidence in his abilities as a tamer. Looking out over the rolling hills and distant tree line, he contemplated their progress toward the nearest town. A steady pace would see them arrive by the following evening, though a more hurried trek might get them there by the middle of the night. The path ahead seemed peaceful, bathed in the soft light of the afternoon sun. He considered the safety of their current location, noting that the presence of his two formidable guardians would likely deter any common monsters from approaching their camp. Despite the security, his ambition stirred. He found himself looking toward the sky, wondering if he might soon encounter a larger, more powerful creature to join his growing family. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing cry echoed through the air, drawing everyone's attention upward. A massive avian silhouette swept across the sky, its wingspan casting a wide shadow over the forest canopy as it circled with predatory grace. The young tamer stared in awe at the creature, identifying it as a goshawk, though its sheer size was unlike anything he had ever seen. Beside him, Jamiel trembled in terror, insisting that such a beast was far beyond their ability to handle. The rabbit's frantic warnings did little to dampen the tamer's curiosity, even as the bird began its descent. Panic erupted as the massive bird dove with lethal intent, its talons outstretched. Jamiel shrieked for his master to act, fearing they would all be devoured if the creature wasn't subdued immediately. The air rushed with the force of the bird's wings as it closed the distance in a blur of feathers and fury. The impact was sudden and violent as the avian predator clashed with the group's guardians. Dust and leaves swirled around the struggle, the Sheba and the great wolf-like beast snapping at the intruder as it fought with surprising ferocity. He watched, breathless, as the raw power of nature unfolded inches away from him. Seizing a momentary lull in the chaos, he found himself face-to-face with the magnificent predator. Urged on by Jamiel's desperate cries to finish the taming, he reached out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline. He looked directly into the bird's piercing eyes and asked if it would join him, offering a bond of companionship instead of conflict. He watches as the majestic bird lets out a final, piercing cry, its wings spread wide in a gesture of submission. The creature communicates its acceptance, vowing to follow its new master's lead from this moment forward. Delighted by the successful bond, he bestows the name Falco upon the avian predator. As the bird perches confidently on his arm, he expresses his hope that they will grow together, envisioning a future where they can soar through the skies as one. With his first 5 companions now gathered around him in the quiet clearing, he realizes it is time to establish a formal symbol of their union. He proposes creating a unique crest, a mark that will identify them all as part of his pack. This mark serves as more than just a symbol. It is a magical seal of their contract. He explains that any monster bearing this emblem will be granted a single, powerful defensive shield, a vital protection against the dangers they might face. He pauses to consider the design, his gaze drifting over his loyal friends as he searches for something that truly represents their bond. The weight of the decision hangs in the air while he contemplates the perfect image for his Tamer's mark. Finally, he unveils his choice, a simple, bold paw print with his name, Ken, inscribed clearly beneath it. His companions look on with curiosity and approval as the design is finalized on a small, glowing tablet. As they discuss the details, the conversation turns to his own identity and how it should be represented. He decides to keep things simple, opting to use only his first name for the mark, a choice that reflects his straightforward and honest nature. To bring the mark to life, a small, magical stamp is produced by his tiny rodent companion. With a focused expression, he prepares to press the seal onto his friends, the air humming with the faint resonance of the magic about to be bestowed. One by one, the glowing paw print appears on the fur and gelatinous bodies of his friends. He beams with pride, thanking them for their trust as the marks settle into place, solidifying their connection as a true team. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, the group stands ready for whatever lies ahead. The quiet peace of the evening marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of their journey as a unified force. He decides to set up camp as evening falls, realizing he needs to light a lantern. Searching his supplies, he wonders if he has oil, but then turns to his slime companion, Aqua, asking for one of the magical gems they collected earlier to power his lighter. With a flick of the flint, a steady flame erupts from the device, much to his delight. As the light flickers, the gem slime explains the nature of their world, noting that mana is the lifeblood of all things, including gems. It reassures him that the other companions can sustain themselves by hunting or absorbing mana from the environment, meaning he doesn't need to worry about feeding them for several days. This revelation brings a sense of relief, yet he can't help but reflect on the weight of caring for so many lives. While he once felt the sting of loneliness, he now feels a profound sense of responsibility for the creatures that have entrusted their lives to him. Turning his attention to his own needs, he begins preparing a simple meal. He carefully adds rock salt, dried meat, and preserved vegetables into a pot of simmering water. The campsite becomes a peaceful sanctuary in the wilderness, with the large wolf-like beast resting contentedly as the aroma of the cooking soup fills the air. He takes his first bite, finding the mysterious blend of meat and vegetables surprisingly flavorful. The warm soup and crisp crackers provide a much-needed comfort after a long day. For a finishing touch, he reaches for a box of chocolates he brought from his original world. The sweet treat is a welcome luxury in this unfamiliar land. To his astonishment, he notices the box has replenished itself, a magical login bonus from his previous life that provides a fresh piece every day. Looking up at the brilliant, star-studded sky, he is struck by the beauty of his first night in this new world. As he settles down to sleep, his thoughts drift back to the life he left behind. He wonders about the friends and colleagues he may have inconvenienced by his sudden departure, acknowledging that in that world, he is likely considered dead. He lay nestled among his monstrous companions, the warmth of their fur and the steady rhythm of their breathing a comfort in the wild. As he drifted in the threshold of sleep, a quiet resolve took hold. He would find a way to thrive in this world, and he prayed that his new friends would remain healthy and safe by his side. He was jolted from his peaceful slumber by the persistent prodding of the small squirrel, the morning sun already casting long shadows across their campsite. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he offered a groggy greeting to the gathered group, noticing a new calico cat among them. Though the realization that they were still far from the comforts of a town's bathhouse dampened his morning spirits. He recoiled in surprise as the slime, Sakura, suddenly surged forward, but his alarm turned to delight as he felt a wave of refreshing cleanliness wash over him. Marveling at the purification effect that left his skin feeling smooth and rejuvenated, he thanked the little creature before his thoughts turned toward the one thing that would truly complete his morning, a hot cup of coffee. He carefully set up his percolator, the familiar clinking of the metal a grounding sound in the alien wilderness. As he poured water from his magical, self-replenishing bottle, he reflected on the sheer convenience of such an item, knowing full well that while a man might survive weeks without food, the lack of water would claim him in mere days. He took a long, slow sip of the freshly brewed coffee, the rich, nostalgic aroma bringing a small smile to his face as it chased away the last remnants of lethargy. Feeling revitalized, he suggested to the group that they begin making their way toward the highway, but his plan was abruptly interrupted by a sudden, startling movement nearby. He froze in terror as the calico cat trotted back into view, proudly dragging a large, writhing snake toward him. Despite his frantic pleas for the feline to keep the creature away, the cat seemed insistent, and he found himself caught between his deep-seated fear of serpents and the realization that his companions expected him to tame the beast. He stood trembling before the massive serpent, its scales shimmering in the light as it loomed over him with an air of quiet submission. Swallowing his fear, he reached out and initiated the taming process, bestowing the name Serpan upon the creature and watching as a glowing magical seal solidified their new bond. He breathed a sigh of relief when the once imposing snake suddenly shifted its form, shrinking down into a much smaller and far less threatening size. Looking down at the tiny creature now coiled harmlessly in his hands, he offered a sincere word of thanks, grateful that it had chosen a shape that didn't leave him paralyzed with fright. He examined the small serpent closely, realizing that the taming process had triggered a unique evolution, transforming the potentially lethal creature into a non-venomous green big python. The discovery that he could influence a monster's traits through taming was a revelation, and he felt a surge of confidence knowing his new ally posed no danger to the group. He listened as the small Shimnu pointed out the practical benefit of their new companion, noting that Serpent's presence would likely deter other, more dangerous snakes from approaching them. With the morning's excitement settled, he accepted the large wolf's offer for a ride, and the expanded party finally set off, ready to face whatever the road ahead might hold. He clings desperately to the thick fur as the calico cat, now grown to a massive size, thunders across the landscape at a breakneck pace. The sheer speed forces a terrified cry from his lungs, his eyes squeezed shut against the rushing wind. The feline companion urges him to hold on tight, but he can barely find his voice to plead for a gentler ride. Despite the overwhelming velocity, a realization strikes him. If they are to travel this way, it seems there is only one speed, maximum. The young traveler finally reaches a paved road, his heart lifting at the sight of a horse-drawn carriage and other people in the distance. He remarks to himself that a town must be close, feeling a sense of relief after his long journey through the wilds. His relief is short-lived, however, as the group of armed men they encounter reacts with immediate hostility, drawing their blades at the sight of his massive companions. The sudden tension causes the animals to recoil in surprise, their peaceful demeanor clashing with the sharp steel now pointed their way. He quickly interjects, waving his arms frantically to signal his peaceful intentions and shouting for the men to hold their fire. He explains with desperate clarity that these creatures are his tamed companions and pose no threat to anyone. The men remain wary, their leader squinting as he questions if such formidable beasts could truly be mere familiars. They exchange skeptical glances, noting that they have never seen subspecies like these, perhaps a red lynx or a hellhound, under a human's command before. As the tension begins to simmer down, the warriors explain the cause of their alarm, noting that taming such large magical beasts is a feat thought to be impossible. They reveal that in this current age, the art of monster taming has all but vanished, making his group an incredible rarity. Taking advantage of the opening, he inquires about the nearby town, learning that the path leads toward a place called Restam. The men, though still curious about the strange traveler, seem satisfied for the moment that the creatures are under control. The conversation turns toward his origins when the large man asks for his place of birth and some form of identification. Lacking any official papers, he searches his mind for a name he remembers and claims to be from Kajakiri Mountain. This revelation sends a new wave of shock through the group, as they explain that Kajakiri Mountain is a legendary territory teeming with high-level monsters that no sane adventurer would ever approach. He realizes with a sinking feeling that his attempt to sound local has instead painted him as someone far more dangerous than he intended. After parting ways with the travelers, he looks down at his loyal canine companion, reflecting on the unintended weight of his lie. He muses that perhaps coming from such a notorious place explains why his companions are so much stronger than the norm, even if it makes him stand out. He concludes that in this unfamiliar world, every word carries weight, and he must be far more careful about the history he invents for himself. As they continue toward the town, the reality of his situation as an outsider truly begins to set in. He gazes out over the horizon, the sprawling city of Restam finally coming into view. The sheer scale of the settlement, nestled against the mountains, catches him off guard. As the group nears the massive stone gates, the sentries on duty recoil in visible shock. The sight of a massive wolf and a diverse pack of creatures following a lone traveler is enough to make any seasoned guard reach for their weapons. Stepping forward to ease the tension, he presents his identification to the wary official. The guard explains the standard entry tolls, 1 silver coin for a person and an additional silver for each large beast. After the transaction is complete, the guard issues a stern warning about maintaining strict control over his companions within the city walls. Passing through the threshold, he finds himself immersed in a vibrant, bustling metropolis. The streets are lined with multi-story stone buildings and filled with the constant chatter of citizens and travelers alike, a stark contrast to the quiet trails he has been walking. A familiar, booming voice cuts through the noise as the large warrior, Hector, catches up to him. Hector correctly guesses that the young traveler is heading toward the Adventurers Guild and offers to lead the way, noting that it's a bit of a walk from the main gate. The warrior lets out a hearty laugh, remarking that it's only natural for a survivor from the legendary Kajakiri Mountain to seek out the guild. He can only offer a strained, awkward smile in return, realizing that his accidental lie has firmly taken root in the big man's mind. With a friendly slap on the shoulder, the warrior formally introduces himself as Hector and expresses his gratitude for the earlier encounter. He accepts the offer of guidance, relieved to have a local showing him the ropes in such a massive place. They soon arrive at a grand, cathedral-like structure that serves as the local headquarters for adventurers. However, the guards stationed at the entrance immediately tense up, their hands hovering over their hilts as they eye the large wolf and the rest of the unusual entourage. Sensing the rising hostility, Hector steps in to vouch for his new acquaintance. He loudly proclaims to the guards that these creatures are tamed familiars and pose no threat to the city's peace, urging them to stand down. Despite the endorsement, the guards remain skeptical, their eyes wide with disbelief at the sheer size of the wolf. He quickly tries to soothe his companions, urging them to remain calm and stay close as they prepare to enter the heart of the guild. He stands at the threshold of the Adventurers Guild, hesitating as the weight of the moment settles on him. Hector, ever the boisterous mentor, claps a heavy hand on his shoulder and tells him to relax, assuring him that a recommendation from a man of his standing carries weight. Despite the encouragement, the young man remains anxious, wondering if they will truly allow him to register as an adventurer with such unusual companions in tow. Stepping inside, he is greeted by a polite receptionist who nearly drops her pen when she sees Hector's signature on the referral. She quickly hands over a registration form, her eyes darting between the paper and the unassuming youth before her. He begins to fill out the document, feeling the pressure of the guild's bustling atmosphere as other adventurers cast curious glances his way. While he writes, the conversation turns to the distinction between a simple Tamer and a true monster user, a title reserved for those who command beasts of significant power. The receptionist notes that while most beginners start with small creatures, his ability to manage such large companions puts him in a different league entirely. He focuses on his penmanship, trying to ignore the growing sense that he is being evaluated far more strictly than a typical recruit. He is instructed to place his hand upon a glowing magical plate to finalize the process. A soft hum fills the air as the device vibrates, and moments later, a crisp, metallic card slides out of a slot. He picks it up with trembling fingers, his eyes widening as he sees the intricate engravings and the official seal of the guild shimmering on the surface. The information etched into the metal leaves him speechless, as it identifies him not as a novice, but as a high-rank adventurer and a monster user. He stammers a protest, pointing out that he is just a beginner, but the receptionist simply smiles, explaining that the guild's assessment is absolute. The realization that his status has skyrocketed overnight sends a wave of nervous energy through him. Shifting the topic to more practical matters, he inquires about living arrangements that can accommodate his large companions. The receptionist describes a specialized lodging area that provides basic necessities like a bed and a water source, though she warns him that meals are not included. He considers the offer, weighing the lack of amenities against the necessity of keeping his monsters safe and comfortable. He decides to secure the room for 10 days, counting out the silver coins for himself and his large wolf-like friend. Hector, having finished his own business, offers to treat him to a celebratory dinner, but the young man politely declines. He explains that he needs to settle his companions in first, prioritizing their well-being over a night of revelry. Leaving the main hall behind, he makes his way toward the designated lodging wing of the guild's massive stone complex. The architecture is imposing, a testament to the wealth and power of the organization that now counts him among its high-ranking members. Upon entering the room, he is pleasantly surprised by its size and the quality of the furnishings, which far exceed his modest expectations. The space includes a functional kitchen area and plenty of room for his companions to stretch out. He sets his bag down, feeling a sense of relief that they finally have a place to call home within the city walls. After inspecting the private well in the courtyard, he turns to his massive wolf companion and discusses their plans for the evening. He reminds the creature to stay on guard while he heads back out to handle a few more errands. With a final pat on the fur, he prepares to step back into the city, now officially recognized as a force to be reckoned with. He finds himself in the company of a massive, slumbering calico cat at the inn, its fur so thick and soft it practically swallows his hand as he leans in to pet it. The creature purrs with a deep, rhythmic vibration, its contentment filling the quiet room as he marvels at its sheer fluffiness. After leaving the comfort of his room, he reunites with Hector and a small band of seasoned adventurers waiting in the street. They greet him warmly, noting that his group of companions seems a bit smaller than before, though the atmosphere remains jovial as they prepare for the evening. The group leads him to a bustling tavern with a sign depicting a charging boar, where the outdoor seating offers plenty of room for his larger companions. A waitress approaches tentatively, her eyes wide at the sight of the massive wolf, but he quickly offers a reassuring smile, promising that the beast is perfectly well-behaved and poses no threat. Once they are settled, Hector explains that this establishment operates on a buffet system, allowing them to eat and drink to their heart's content for a fixed price. The small Shiba Inu at his side barks with excitement, sensing the impending feast as the waitress begins to bring out the first round of mugs. As the first round of drinks is raised in a boisterous toast, the men begin their introductions, with Hector identifying as a swordsman, Lime as a spearman, and a stout, bearded man named Balloon revealing himself as an axe wielder. Joining the introductions, a slender man named Franz reveals himself to be a mage, prompting a look of genuine awe from the young monster user. The prospect of seeing real magic in action clearly piques his curiosity, as he had only heard stories of such practitioners. The conversation is momentarily silenced by the arrival of a magnificent spread of roasted meats, fresh vegetables, and savory stews. A collective roar of approval goes up from the table as the adventurers prepare to dig into the steaming platters. He takes his first bite and is surprised by how familiar and delicious the flavors are, noting that the culinary culture here isn't so different from his own world after all. Around him, the seasoned warriors prove their mettle in a different way, draining large mugs of ale with impressive speed and urging him to keep up with their pace. Between mouthfuls, the veterans offer advice on the life of an adventurer, explaining that while they enjoy great freedom, they must also take full responsibility for the requests they choose to accept, whether it be gathering materials or subjugating monsters. Hector also reminds him that larger monsters are required to wear collars in the city for public safety, a regulation he promises to address soon. With the meal concluded and the bill settled, he bids his new friends a fond farewell, his face flushed with the warmth of the evening's camaraderie. He walks away with a bright smile, feeling a profound sense of belonging as he heads back to his lodgings for the night. He finally made it back to his quarters, the weight of the day's events pressing heavily upon him. Upon entering, he found the large calico cat already sprawled across the bed, claiming the softest spot for itself. With a weary but content sigh, he threw himself onto the mattress, welcoming the familiar comfort of his temporary home. The next morning, a persistent tickle on his forehead pulled him from a deep slumber. The small squirrel-like companion was diligently licking his face, chirping a reminder that the sun was already up and it was time to start the day. Groaning as he sat up, he felt the stiffness in his joints from having fallen asleep in such a cramped position. He stepped outside to greet the morning air, stretching his limbs until they popped. One of the slimes hopped up to help, its gelatinous body efficiently cleaning the grime of travel from his skin. Feeling refreshed, he retreated to the small kitchen area to brew a pot of dark, aromatic coffee. He took a slow sip of the hot brew, pleasantly surprised by its rich flavor and reflecting on how some comforts of his old life existed even in this strange new world. Turning to his gathered companions, he mentioned the morning market Hector had described, suggesting they head out to see what was on offer. While the others seemed eager, the large calico cat remained curled up on the bed, clearly intending to spend the morning as a shut-in. He chuckled, deciding it was important for the townspeople to see his monsters behaving peacefully in public. Arriving at the town square, he was immediately swept up in the vibrant energy of the morning market. Stalls were overflowing with an incredible bounty. Rows of sizzling sausages, baskets of crusty, fresh-baked bread, and piles of colorful, exotic fruits. His eyes widened with excitement as he realized the culinary possibilities, eager to gather the finest ingredients for a proper breakfast. The young tamer stands before a market stall, his eyes wide with wonder at the oversized, glistening cherries. The vendor chuckles, assuring him of their sweetness and explaining that they are equally delicious whether eaten fresh or cooked into a dish. After his shopping, he takes a moment to indulge in a massive, juice-dripping hamburger. The blend of spices is perfect, and he follows it with a steaming cup of coffee, savoring the familiar, comforting warmth of the brew. He continues his stroll through the bustling streets, a bowl in hand as he reflects on the strange familiarity of this world. Despite being a parallel realm, the ingredients and flavors align perfectly with the culinary images he holds from his own home. His journey through the market becomes a whirlwind of activity as he gathers supplies. He stocks up on vibrant bananas, more of those giant cherries, aromatic coffee beans, and a variety of fresh vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and leafy greens before heading toward the savory scents of the butcher's row. At the meat stall, the burly butcher greets him with a knowing grin, having heard rumors of the talented new tamer in town. He presents a prime cut of meat, which the young man accepts with a grateful bow, appreciative of the local hospitality. As he prepares to leave the commercial district, he stops to chat with a friendly shopkeeper who can't help but admire the squishy, translucent slimes resting in his arms. Nearby, the calico cat stretches lazily, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the town. With his pack heavy and his companions by his side, he sets a course for the outskirts of the city. He shares his plan with the large wolf and the cat, intending to hunt for fresh provisions and perhaps uncover some valuable gems along the way. They soon arrive at a dense forest where the ground is riddled with mysterious burrows. He explains to his team that this is the territory of horned rabbits and the elusive gem monsters, noting that the sheer number of holes makes it a prime hunting ground. He pauses to consider their strategy, recalling that gem monsters are actually precious stones transformed by the world's ambient mana. Seeing his hesitation, the slender green snake offers to slither into the narrow openings to flush their quarry out into the open. He slithers toward the dark opening in the earth, his scales shimmering as he prepares to flush out their prey. The others wait in tense silence, eyes fixed on the burrow, anticipating the first sign of movement from within the shadows. Suddenly, a massive horned rabbit erupts from the ground with a startled cry, its single horn gleaming dangerously as it lunges toward the young tamer. The sheer speed of the creature catches the group off guard, forcing an immediate reaction. Reeling back from the unexpected size of the beast, he struggles to maintain his footing while his avian companion chirps a sharp warning from his shoulder. He questions how such a large creature could fit in the burrow, realizing the danger is far greater than the standard variants he expected to find. Before the beast can strike again, the companions spring into action. The serpent coils tightly around the rabbit's powerful frame, while the calico cat and the great wolf-like beast coordinate their assault. The struggle is brief but intense, ending with the monster's swift defeat under their combined strength. With the threat neutralized, the young man cheers for his friends, his hands soon filled with the shimmering gems that have fallen from the defeated creature. He thanks everyone for their hard work, delighted by the quality of the harvest and the efficiency of his team. As the dust settles and the group gathers the spoils of their hunt, a tiny, trembling figure emerges from the brush. It watches the powerful tame beasts and the large rabbit companion with wide, curious eyes, seemingly drawn to the group's presence despite its obvious fear. He kneels before the small, horned creature, offering a gentle hand as it radiates a soft, magical glow. He asks if it wants to become his companion, and the little creature responds with a joyful, shimmering light, signaling its desire to join their growing family. Cradling the fluffy newcomer in his arms, he marvels at its soft fur and decides to name the little subspecies Lapin. He tells the creature that they will become strong together, a sentiment echoed by his other companions who look on with approval at the new addition. The group takes a well-deserved rest under the forest canopy, discussing their successful haul and the surprising new addition to their ranks. He reflects on how much they've accomplished in a single afternoon, noting the strength and coordination of his team before the sun begins its descent. With the day's work complete, the Tamer and his loyal companions approach the stone towers of the guild. He presents his identification to the guards at the gate, ready to report their findings and secure their rewards for the gems they've harvested. He approaches the city gates, exchanging a friendly greeting with the guard on duty. As he walks through the stone archway, he notices the bustling atmosphere of the town, his loyal companions, the Shiba Inu, the Calico Cat, and the Slimes, trailing closely behind him. Upon entering the guild, he approaches the reception desk where a polite woman directs him to the appraisal area. Without hesitation, he empties his bag, and a cascading mountain of monster gems clatters onto the counter, much to the astonishment of the staff. The guild master, Jim, adjusts his glasses in disbelief at the sheer volume of the haul. He immediately calls for additional hands to begin the arduous task of sorting and valuing the massive pile of shimmering stones. While the staff works, Jim explains that gems have been in constant short supply lately, expressing deep gratitude for such a significant contribution. The young Tamer remains humble, surprised that his efforts have such a direct impact on the guild's needs. He then inquires about purchasing a map of the surrounding area to better navigate his future travels. Jim, appreciative of the recent delivery, insists on providing one free of charge, handing over the parchment with a smile. Stepping back out into the sunlight, he unfurls the map, realizing how much he has relied on others for direction until now. With his avian companion perched nearby and his other friends at his heels, he resolves to master the local geography. Later that evening, he finds himself in a well-equipped kitchen, ready to prepare a proper meal. He rolls up his sleeves, determined to turn the fresh ingredients he acquired into a feast for himself and his companions. He starts by examining a round, earthy tuber, noting its familiar scent and texture. It reminds him of a potato, and he decides that boiling it would be the best way to bring out its natural flavor. The kitchen soon fills with the savory aroma of searing meat and the steam from the boiling vegetables. He carefully flips the thick steaks in the pan, ensuring they are cooked to perfection while the salted potatoes reach the ideal tenderness. Finally, they all sit down to eat, and the first bite of the succulent, tender meat brings a look of pure bliss to his face. His companions join in the feast, their shared contentment a testament to a long day's work well rewarded. He is jolted awake by the persistent nudging of Jamiel, the large rabbit. Groggily, he tries to fend off the morning wake-up call, noting that the small horned lapin is also ready to start the day. After shaking off the remnants of sleep, the young adventurer sits on a bench in the town square, enjoying a quiet drink while his Shiba Inu companion waits patiently by his side. He contemplates visiting some local shops to find useful items or accessories for his journey. His search leads him to a local furniture shop, where he is greeted by a burly shopkeeper. He inquires about the availability of folding tables and chairs, hoping to improve their camping setup. Because the shop is filled with delicate inventory, the owner explains that the larger companions must remain outside. He quickly agrees, instructing his more imposing allies to wait by the entrance while he handles the business inside. Once inside, the shopkeeper remarks on the impressive nature of the creatures following him, having heard rumors of a tamer with powerful monsters. He simply smiles, insisting that to him, they are just his cute and loyal friends. The conversation shifts to the practicalities of the folding table, with the merchant questioning how such a large item will be transported. He reveals his secret, explaining that his storage slime can easily accommodate the load, a revelation that leaves the shopkeeper quite surprised as the deal is finalized. Stepping back out into the street, he demonstrates the process, allowing the gelatinous slime to engulf the newly purchased furniture. The shopkeeper watches in awe, impressed by the efficiency of the tamer's unique companions. With the furniture secured, his next stop is a vibrant shop filled with various leather goods and accessories. He is immediately struck by the quality and variety of the items on display, his eyes widening at the possibilities. Inside, he begins looking for new collars for his diverse group of companions, catching the attention of the bearded shopkeeper. The man is stunned by the sheer variety of monsters accompanying the youth, from a calico cat to a majestic bird, and listens as the adventurer explains his need for specific gear. The shopkeeper eventually steps outside to take measurements of the massive wolf-like creature, marveling at its size while trying to remain professional. Meanwhile, the presence of such a formidable beast in the middle of the street causes a stir among the townspeople, whose shouts of surprise echo through the air. He and the rest of the group watched as the merchant suddenly recoiled in terror, shouting about his intense dislike for snakes. Ken quickly apologized, realizing he had forgotten to mention his serpentine companion. He explained that the creature usually stayed hidden within a collar and was actually quite gentle, despite its appearance. After the initial shock subsided, the merchant regained his composure and began examining the diverse group of animals, noting that while the massive wolf looked intimidating, its fur was surprisingly fine. He encouraged Ken to choose colors for the new gear, promising that the shades would settle and look even better over time. Ken selected a vibrant red for the cat and then made a special request: a small basket attachment for the wolf's collar to ensure the little rabbit wouldn't fall off, as well as a sturdy shoulder protector designed for his avian friend to perch on comfortably. The craftsman listened intently to the specific requirements, his professional pride evident as he boasted about his origins in Baizen, a city renowned for its master workshops. He assured Ken that he could handle any request, no matter how unusual, and suggested using a high-quality leather for the shoulder piece to make it more durable. To seal the deal, Ken handed over a single gold coin as a deposit, and the merchant informed him that the custom-made items would be ready for pickup in 3 days. Leaving the shop with a sense of accomplishment, he felt a surge of optimism about their progress, even as he contemplated the need to hunt more gems to replenish his funds. His mood brightened further when he spotted a stall selling fresh milk and cheese, his eyes widening with excitement at the prospect of a delicious snack. While his companions watched his sudden burst of enthusiasm with a mix of amusement and resignation, he eagerly inquired about the fresh dairy, ready to treat himself and his loyal team after a productive morning of shopping. The group charges across the open plains, the rhythmic thud of paws against the earth echoing through the air as they make their way toward a new destination. Mounted atop his loyal canine companion, the young tamer leans forward, his eyes fixed on the horizon while his other companions keep pace beside them. He recalls a conversation from 3 hours prior, where his small rodent friend suggested their next target. The creature explained that brown hard rocks were in high demand and would fetch a handsome price, prompting him to consider the challenge of hunting them. Consulting his map in the present, the adventurer marvels at the sheer scale of the world, noting that they are currently in a region called Restam. He is genuinely impressed by the level of detail provided by the guild, wondering if such high-quality maps are standard for all explorers. As he examines the parchment more closely, the lines and labels seem to sharpen, a result of his appraisal skill enhancing the information before him. He expresses his gratitude for the ability, realizing just how useful it is for navigating these vast, unknown lands with such precision. The map reveals various landmarks, including the dwarf workshop city of Paizen and the island nations to the west, making him realize there is still so much of this world left to explore. Pointing to a specific coordinate, he declares that they have found the breeding grounds for their quarry. With a determined step, he signals for the group to move out toward the marked location. The lush greenery eventually gives way to a stark, desolate wasteland of jagged stones and gray earth, signaling their arrival at the hunting grounds. Upon reaching the site, the young man freezes in disbelief as the ground itself seems to stir. He realizes with a start that the rocks they were sent to find aren't mere minerals, but living, breathing monsters camouflaged perfectly against the terrain. He prepares for the task at hand, hefting a heavy, stone-headed hammer. He explains to his small companions that they need to strike the monsters hard to peel away their rocky camouflage, starting with the largest one in front of them. With a determined cry, he brings the massive tool down upon one of the camouflaged creatures. The force of the blow vibrates through his arms as the hammer connects with the solid, deceptive surface of the monster's shell. The impact is successful, causing the thick, stony outer layer to shatter and flake away. He shouts in a mix of exertion and surprise as the true form of the monster is revealed beneath its broken shell, the sudden release of energy nearly knocking him back. While he recovers from the swing, his larger companions leap into action, with the great wolf and the agile cat tearing into the exposed monsters. He reaches down to retrieve a large, shimmering crystal that has fallen from the defeated foe, marveling at its impressive size and brilliance. The skirmish intensifies as the entire group joins the fray, turning the wasteland into a chaotic battlefield. He continues to swing his hammer with everything he has, while the slimes and the small canine dart between the legs of the rock-like beasts, though the physical toll of the battle begins to make his movements heavy and pain. Seeking an advantage, he focuses his senses and expands his appraisal skill, allowing a magical clarity to wash over his vision so he can better distinguish the monsters from the surrounding terrain. He calls out encouragement to his team, urging them to keep up the pressure as they systematically dismantle the remaining rocky threats. The coordinated assault proves overwhelming for the creatures, which stand no chance against the group's combined strength. The great wolf's powerful jaws and the cat's sharp claws make short work of the remaining monsters, leaving a trail of glowing gems scattered across the dusty ground as the dust finally begins to settle. Once the last of the threats has been neutralized, he collapses onto the uneven ground, his chest heaving with total exhaustion. He reflects on the sheer number of monsters they faced and the bounty of materials they managed to collect, admitting to himself that he is so spent he can barely move his fingers, let alone a spoon. Recognizing his fatigue, the massive wolf allows him to rest upon its broad, furred back for the journey home. He lies there, staring up at the sky with a weary but satisfied smile, grateful for the strength and comfort of his companions as they begin the long trek out of the valley. Eventually, the rhythmic swaying of the wolf's gait lulls him into a deep, dreamless sleep. As they pass through a narrow canyon, one of his companions calls out to him, trying to rouse him from his slumber, but he remains completely unconscious, his body finally surrendering to the day's grueling hunt. He stands at the edge of the precipice, eyes gleaming with a new objective, the rare orange luminous moss rumored to grow in the depths of the canyon. While his smaller companions chatter with a mix of anxiety and excitement, he prepares to descend, calling upon his avian partner to bridge the gap between the heights and the shadowed floor below. He clings tightly as the great bird plunges into the abyss, its powerful wings cutting through the air. The wind howls past them as they dive deeper into the darkness, the sheer rock walls blurring into a gray streak of speed and shadow. They reach the end of the descent in a secluded, damp grotto where the air is thick with the scent of earth and ancient stone. They have reached the heart of the valley, a place where the sun's rays barely touch the floor, creating a perfect cradle for rare flora. He feels the physical toll of the rapid descent and the lingering fatigue from their previous battle finally catch up to him, and he collapses onto the mossy ground. As he gasps for air, His companions gather around, their concern evident as they watch their leader struggle to find his footing in this new, silent environment. Amidst his recovery, the small rodent companion takes the lead, gesturing toward the delicate plants clinging to the rocks. It explains with surprising clarity that they must be careful. If they tear the plants out by the roots, the moss will never return, but by harvesting only the leaves, they ensure the valley's bounty remains for years to come. He listens intently, realizing the delicate balance of this ecosystem and the immense time it would take for such a rare resource to recover from a careless harvest. As the slimes begin to move with purpose, he watches them, his mind already turning toward how to utilize the glowing vegetation they are about to gather. Despite the offer of a comfortable ride back up the steep cliffs from his massive lupin friend, he chooses to walk, testing his strength against the rugged terrain. He looks back at the daunting path they descended, a sense of accomplishment mingling with the exhaustion that still weighs heavy on his limbs. He carefully collects the vibrant orange moss into a shallow bowl, examining the glowing harvest with a mixture of awe and curiosity. The squirrel companion assists, ensuring that every leaf is handled with the respect the rare plant deserves. Sensing an opportunity to enhance his companion's utility, he focuses his energy, bestowing the specialized skills of compounding and refining upon the two slimes. A brilliant light erupts from them as the magical transfer takes hold, granting the gelatinous creatures the power to transform raw materials into something far more potent. He watches as they immediately set to work, consuming the orange moss and processing it within their translucent bodies before secreting a shimmering liquid into the bowl. He stares in disbelief as the realization hits him. They haven't just made a simple tonic, but a true panacea, a universal medicine capable of healing almost any ailment. He dips his injured hand into the bowl of freshly made panacea. To his amazement, the wound vanishes instantly, leaving his skin unblemished and smooth as if the injury had never occurred. Overjoyed by the success, he raises his hand to the sky, shouting in triumph that the pain is completely gone. His slime companions bounce around him, sharing in his excitement as they prepare to gather more of the precious moss. While the slimes diligently harvest the glowing flora, he watches with a satisfied smile, praising their hard work. Nearby, his canine companion rolls playfully in the grass, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the canyon. As the light begins to fade, he realizes it's too late to return to the city before the gates close. He decides they will camp here for the night, noting that the weather seems clear and the location is safe enough for a temporary stay. He begins setting up their campsite, arranging the sturdy wooden table and chairs he purchased recently. The familiar comfort of the furniture makes the rugged canyon feel a bit more like home. Soon, the savory aroma of sizzling sausages fills the air as they cook over a small fire. The meat browns perfectly, glistening with juices that promise a hearty meal after a long day of work. He takes a large bite, his eyes widening at the incredible flavor. The meat is succulent and perfectly seasoned, making him wish he had some fresh bread to accompany such a delicious feast. After finishing his meal, he leans back in his chair, savoring the quiet evening. He reflects on the day's achievements and considers what other comforts, like tea or coffee, he might want to acquire for future trips. Nearby, his loyal companions have already drifted off to sleep, huddling together for warmth and companionship. The soft sounds of their breathing add to the tranquility of the starlit canyon. Finally, he closes his eyes, a contented smile on his face as he drifts into a deep slumber. He feels a profound sense of gratitude for his unique friends and the peaceful life they share together. He decides to stay behind for a while longer to gather more of the luminous moss, encouraging his companions to head off and enjoy a hunt of their own. The group disperses with enthusiastic barks and chirps, and their incredible speed leaves him in awe as they vanish into the canyon's depths to begin their search. He reflects on the local fauna, mentioning the legendary Highland chicken that inhabits the area, known for its exquisite flavor and useful feathers. While the feline companion considers the potential for new crafting materials, the young man realizes this excursion is a perfect opportunity for his friends to bond. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a triumphant return as the small canine skids to a halt, dragging a prize far larger than itself. The sight of the massive bird leaves him speechless, marveling at how such a small creature could take down such a formidable opponent. Not to be outdone, the calico cat arrives with her own catch, prompting a round of praise for their impressive skills. With the sun climbing higher and their packs full of moss and fresh meat, he decides it is finally time to conclude their expedition and begin the journey home. Calling out to his avian companion, he prepares for a swift departure from the rugged terrain. He leaps onto the great bird's back, and with a powerful beat of wings, they soar into the sky. The sudden rush of wind and the rapidly shrinking ground below bring a wide, exhilarated grin to his face as they leave the canyon behind. Gazing down at the sprawling landscape, he is struck by the sheer beauty of this world, finding it every bit as captivating as the one he left behind. As his ground-bound companions race across the plains below, he sets his sights on the distant city of Restham, filled with a renewed sense of joy for the adventures that lie ahead in this beautiful land. The group stands together, radiating a sense of accomplishment. The small canine and the calico cat strike confident poses, while the majestic bird of prey perches nearby, all of them eager to show off their recent successes to their master. Because of their striking appearance, they immediately draw a crowd as they enter the town. A young boy exclaims in wonder at their size, while others react with a mix of shock and curiosity. He quickly steps in to reassure the startled onlookers, explaining that these creatures are his loyal companions and pose no threat to the peaceful citizens. Despite the initial apprehension, The gentle nature of the massive wolf-like creature soon wins everyone over. People find themselves unable to resist the lure of its incredibly soft, thick fur, reaching out to pet the beast with wide-eyed amazement. As the excitement settles, he makes his way toward the town gates to check in with the local authorities. The guards greet him warmly, noting that they had been away for some time and were glad to see the group return safely. He explains that they had been busy hunting and had to camp out in the wild, a story that the guards find both impressive and amusing. After the warm welcome at the gate, he heads straight to meet with the guild master to settle some business. They discuss the impressive haul of Highland chicken and brown hard rock gems he brought back. The official is clearly impressed, noting that these materials are highly valued for street lighting and other essential city functions, and offers a fair price for the collection. With the transaction complete and his pockets a bit heavier, he takes a moment to reflect on the impact of his work as he walks through the darkening streets. He realizes that the gems he collects are more than just loot. They are the lifeblood of the city's infrastructure, eventually returning to the manna from which they were born. It gives him a profound sense of purpose to know that his efforts directly contribute to the well-being of the people living here. This newfound sense of belonging encourages him to indulge in some of the local comforts he had been missing while out in the wild. He stops at a bustling bakery to pick up a variety of fresh, cream-filled pastries and savory cheese breads before visiting a general store to restock on essential supplies like spices and ink. Having finished his errands, he finally retreats to the comfort of his own space to rest for the night. Inside the sturdy tent, he feels a wave of relief and satisfaction wash over him. He thinks about how good it feels to be able to give back to the townspeople through his gem collecting, and he looks forward to continuing his travels to other cities. The next morning, the call of the wild beckons once again, leading the group away from the safety of the town walls. They head toward a nearby forest, a place known for its lush greenery and the various creatures that call it home. The air is crisp and full of promise as they begin their next trek into the unknown. As they delve deeper into the woods, a sudden movement in the underbrush catches his eye. He and his small canine companion stop in their tracks, startled by a sudden, bright flash. Before they can react, a rare and beautiful gold butterfly flutters into view, leaving them both momentarily stunned by the unexpected encounter. He and his diverse group of companions charge through the forest, encountering oversized creatures at every turn. Giant pill bugs roll past like boulders while massive frogs leap through the air, adding to the chaotic energy of their trek through the dense undergrowth. The young man finds himself particularly distressed as a swarm of giant caterpillars wriggles toward him. He admits that while he can handle the presence of snakes, these many-legged, squirming larvae are far beyond his tolerance, causing him to recoil in disgust. Despite the unsettling encounter with the insects, the group's spirits remain high as they encourage one another to keep moving. Suddenly, the shimmering, iridescent wings of a gold butterfly catch the light, fluttering gracefully above the foliage and drawing everyone's immediate attention. He listens intently as the potential value of the rare creature is explained. Its wings can be hardened and processed by skilled dwarven smiths into a unique, transparent material known as glass. Recognizing the rare opportunity, he readies himself to strike while the butterfly is distracted by the nectar of nearby flowers. With a sudden, calculated burst of movement, he lunges forward and successfully pins the large insect to the ground. The struggle is brief but intense, ending with the golden creature finally stilled beneath his grip as the forest air fills with the sound of his success. Once the dust settles, his companions gather around to witness the impressive prize. The butterfly lies motionless, its translucent, shimmering wings spread wide across the forest floor, revealing the true scale of the creature they have just captured. He carefully lifts one of the wings, marveling at how light and brittle it feels, much like the glass it is destined to become. However, the moment of wonder is cut short when the green serpent senses a new presence nearby and urgently warns him to step back and prepare for another encounter. From the shadows of the trees, a massive beetle with a formidable, jagged horn emerges, prompting the animal companions to spring into action. The hawk dives from the sky with a sharp cry, leading the charge against this new, armored threat that stands in their path. The combined efforts of the group quickly overwhelm the giant insect, which collapses and leaves behind a shimmering gem as its physical form dissipates. The companions celebrate their swift victory, though some playful bickering ensues over who delivered the final, decisive blow. He picks up the beetle's discarded horn, noting its incredible hardness and metallic sheen. Realizing it would make an exceptional blade, he begins to plan a visit to a skilled blacksmith, perhaps a dwarf or someone of Bison's caliber, to forge a powerful new weapon from this rare material. He looks forward with a determined smile, his small canine companion perched nearby as they set their sights on their next destination, Bison. Before departing, he meets with Jim to finalize the trade for the materials gathered. The administrator presents him with heavy pouches of gold, explaining that the butterfly wings and meat from the previous day fetched 250 coins, with another 100 for today's haul. He expresses his gratitude, noting that he is glad to repay the town for its hospitality. Jim informs him that the materials will ensure the town's magical streetlights burn brighter and longer than ever before. With the business concluded, he hauls away a massive crate of supplies, ready to put his earnings to good use. As night falls, he strolls through the streets accompanied by his loyal pack. The town is transformed, bathed in a warm, steady glow from the newly fueled lamps. Passers-by marvel at the sudden brightness, noting how many more lights have been lit. He listens to the cheerful chatter of the townspeople, who are encouraged by the influx of resources and the safety provided by the light. Despite the rumors of increasing monster activity, the mood is optimistic, and he can't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. Returning to his quarters, he prepares for a well-earned feast. He has gathered all the necessary ingredients: fresh bread, butter, flour, and the prized Highland chicken meat. Tonight, he plans to create something truly special. He begins the preparation with practiced ease, pounding the chicken flat and seasoning it with a blend of aromatic spices. To create the perfect coating, he toasts slices of bread until they are crisp and then crushes them into fine, golden crumbs. The process continues as he dredges the seasoned meat through flour and beaten eggs before pressing it into the fresh breadcrumbs. He then melts a generous amount of butter in a pan, letting the cutlet sizzle until it reaches a perfect, crispy brown. The result is a magnificent Highland chicken cutlet, steaming and fragrant. He takes a bite and is immediately overwhelmed by the flavor. The harmony of the juicy chicken, the rich butter, and the crunchy breadcrumbs is more than he could have hoped for. It is a moment of pure culinary bliss. To finish the meal, he assembles a decadent sandwich, layering the cutlet with melted cheese between slices of fresh bread. He reflects on how much his life has improved, grateful for the abundance of this world as he shares the joy of a good meal with his companions. He takes a large, satisfying bite of a fresh melon bread, the sweet aroma filling the air as he wanders through the bustling market, enjoying a moment of simple pleasure. After finishing his snack, he approaches a vegetable stall where the vendor is delighted to see his unique companions, offering to sell him her entire stock of fresh produce because of how well he treats them. He hands over a silver coin to finalize the purchase, leaving the merchant beaming with gratitude as he samples another treat, finding the local flavors to be exceptionally delightful. With his bags full and his stomach satisfied, he bids farewell to the friendly vendors, while the small calico cat watches curiously as he prepares for the next part of his day. His next stop is a local workshop, where he commissions a sturdy perch and travel cage for his avian companion, paying the burly craftsman 4 gold coins for the high-quality, custom work. While there, he consults with the shopkeeper about a custom harness for his larger wolf-like friend, ensuring the fit will be comfortable and secure for their upcoming travels. The craftsman quickly finishes the adjustments, and soon the spirited Shiba Inu is proudly sporting its new gear, much to the delight of both the young man and the boisterous shopkeeper. Later that evening, he joins Hector and Franz at a local tavern, where over mugs of ale, Hector brings up a troubling guild request involving mysterious crop damage in a nearby village called Restam. As they delve into the details, he realizes the pattern of the attacks is unusual, noting that only specific items were taken while others were left behind, suggesting that a monster tamer or someone with control over beasts might be the true culprit. He questions why his friend would take on such a potentially complicated and low-reward task, only to be met with a warm, selfless smile and the simple explanation that helping those in need is its own reward, regardless of the profit. Standing before the grand, arched entrance of the guild hall, Jim offers a final, polite bow of encouragement. Beside his assistant, he expresses his sincere gratitude, emphasizing that the party's help is greatly appreciated and that he is counting on their success for this particular request. He turns back with a bright, confident smile, his eyes reflecting the excitement of the task ahead. With a cheerful shout of farewell, he signals his departure to those staying behind, while Hector and Franz follow closely, their expressions equally determined as they prepare to leave the city's safety. They set out along the stone-paved road, the city's tall spires slowly receding into the distance as the open countryside beckons. Mounted and moving at a steady pace, the group is accompanied by their loyal companions, the small dog trotting energetically alongside the mounts, and the great birds soaring through the clear sky above. As the journey begins in earnest, he contemplates the weight of this being his first official guild request, wondering what mysteries and challenges await them at their destination. Ken rides atop the massive, white-furred Max, heading out toward a new horizon. The wind catches his hair as they traverse the open landscape, beginning a fresh chapter of their journey. He reflects on a recent conversation with Goro, the boisterous blacksmith. Goro had recommended a master leatherworker in the artisan district, though he cautioned that the man was quite eccentric and might be considering retirement, making any new commissions difficult to secure. Later, he and Shamuel arrive at Hister village to meet with the village chief and Restia. The elderly chief is full of praise and gratitude for their assistance, while Restia remains focused and professional as they prepare to discuss the local situation. While surveying the outskirts of the village, they stumble upon a set of peculiar tracks. Shamuel observes that these are not the marks of wild horses, and a sudden realization strikes Ken. These are the distinct footprints of a centaur, a creature that should not be anywhere near this human settlement. He shares his findings with Nini, who looks on with wide-eyed surprise. The presence of a half-human, half-horse being so close to civilization is a mystery that demands an explanation. The group gathers to discuss the implications of this discovery. Goro explains that centaurs are known as a phantom race, so rare that most people have never seen one. They weigh the risks, noting that if a centaur were captured, it would likely be sent straight to the royal capital, but the task of subduing one is nearly impossible. Shamuel emphasizes the danger, his expression grim. He warns that even an elite squad from the capital would be overwhelmed by a centaur's sheer physical power and immense magical capacity, which far exceed human comprehension. As they speak, his gaze is drawn to a shimmering, magical distortion manifesting in the air. Sensing a unique opportunity or perhaps a looming threat, he asks the others to step back and leave the situation to him, surprising them with his sudden resolve. He insists that they return to the village and ensure the townspeople stay indoors for their own safety. Though hesitant to leave him alone, Shamiel and Restia eventually agree to his request and begin to withdraw, leaving him to face the anomaly. Now accompanied only by Nini and Talon, he approaches the glowing rift. He calls out gently, attempting to establish communication with whoever is on the other side, his hand reaching toward the barrier as he promises he means no harm. He stands frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief as the shimmering rift reveals not a monster, but a young centaur girl. She cowers, her human torso bare and her expression one of pure, startled vulnerability, while he can only stammer out the word centaur in sheer amazement. Seeing her distress, he gently questions why she is so far from her distant homeland, but the inquiry only causes tears to well up in her large eyes. As she begins to sob, the small feline companion nearby immediately accuses him of being the cause of her sorrow, leaving him flustered and desperate to make amends. In a frantic attempt to soothe her, he rummages through his supplies and offers her some food, apologizing profusely for his intrusion. She looks at the offering with a mixture of hesitation and intense hunger, her tears slowly subsiding as the scent of the fruit reaches her. The girl accepts the gift and begins to eat with a ravenous intensity that catches him off guard. Watching her enjoy the simple meal, he can't help but smile, finding her genuine reaction both endearing and a sign that the immediate tension has passed. Once she finishes, she offers a polite word of thanks and introduces herself as Berryhennel, the youngest of the Chiron tribe. He is struck by her presence, realizing with a start that she was able to see through his magical concealment, a feat impossible for an ordinary human. Beside her, the small, round rodent creature chimes in, expressing its own shock that he can perceive their forms at all. The realization that he is no ordinary traveler hangs in the air as they study one another. Her eyes widen even further when she learns the identities of his companions, gasping at the mention of Shamiel and the creator god. Despite the weight of these names, she finds the small, fluffy forms they currently inhabit to be incredibly charming. Sensing a deeper story, he asks what brought her to such a place, and her expression turns somber as she begins to recount her tale. She explains that the very life force of the earth began to fade, causing her people to grow weak and collapse without warning. She continues, her voice trembling as she describes how her own body began to shrink and lose its strength, forcing her to leave her village so as not to be a burden. Her journey was fraught with danger, nearly being captured by humans before she managed to find refuge within the magical distortion of the rift. Now, she gestures to the surrounding area, explaining that she has managed to survive solely on the strange fruit growing within this pocket of space. He listens intently, the gravity of her plight and the mystery of the fading earth power weighing heavily on his mind. She reveals a startling truth. Despite her youthful appearance, she is over 300 years old. She explains that when centaurs suffer from a mana deficiency, they begin to consume their own life force, causing their bodies to shrink and eventually vanish. Ken is visibly shaken by the realization that Barry could simply disappear if she doesn't find a way to restore her strength. She watches in surprise as he returns shortly after with a massive basket overflowing with fresh fruit. He encourages her to eat as much as she can, noting that her recovery will be swifter with proper nourishment. She is overwhelmed by his kindness, thanking him profusely as she prepares to feast. While she begins to eat, the silence is broken by her curiosity regarding his origins. She asks how he came to be traveling with someone as esteemed as Shamiel, her eyes wide with wonder as she pauses her meal. Listening intently to his story, she learns of his unique situation as a savior summoned from another world to mend the fractures of this one. While she is moved by the weight of his destiny, Ken remains humble, insisting that he hasn't really done anything worthy of such a grand title yet. Moved by his words, she makes a heartfelt request, asking if he would be willing to escort her back to her distant home. Meanwhile, he finds a moment of brief respite, burying his face in the soft, thick fur of the large feline companion, Talon, trying to process the gravity of the journey ahead. Her plea touches him, and he looks at her earnest, hopeful face, finding he cannot refuse. He agrees to the long trek despite the uncertainty of the path, and she is visibly relieved, her expression softening as she realizes she no longer has to face the journey alone. He feels his resolve harden as he considers the debt of gratitude he owes to Shamiel, feeling that helping her is a way to honor that bond. Beside him, the small rodent companion, Nini, watches intently, sensing the shift in his determination. With a firm handshake, he officially welcomes her as his traveling companion. She smiles brightly, her spirit renewed by the promise of returning to her people with a hero by her side. Leaving the two of them to their new partnership, the quiet of the woods gives way to the bustling exterior of a large wooden building. Inside, voices can be heard inquiring about the success of a recent endeavor, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Inside the building, he reports his findings to Marora and the village elders, confirming the presence of the Kate Sith and discussing the rewards. They negotiate the sale of the rare fruits he gathered, with the elders offering 50 gold coins for the lot. Despite the exhaustion of the day, Ken remains focused as they plan for the journey ahead, agreeing to meet at the guild the following morning after a well-deserved rest at the inn. He inquires about the tea he's enjoying, learning it's a specialty from Reworth Village, one of the 3 local settlements. Later, he settles into a tent for the night, preferring the simple comfort of the outdoors over a formal guest room. While preparing for the journey, he discusses the incredible utility of his storage magic with Shamiel. The knight admits he's envious of such a convenient ability, noting how much easier it makes traveling across uneven terrain. The next morning, he delights in a breakfast of fresh apple juice and bread with jam, savoring the simple flavors. However, the mood turns serious as he joins Shamiel and Marora to discuss their official report, while Barry remains hidden from public view. Marora emphasizes the importance of full disclosure to the guild, assuring him that they can be trusted with sensitive information. He listens intently, realizing the weight of the secrets they carry regarding Barry's true nature and the potential dangers involved. Within the grand halls of the Resdam Adventurers Guild, the group reconvenes in a private office. Marora looks toward the small centaur girl, seeking final confirmation of the incredible tale they've just shared, to which Barry softly agrees. Upon arriving at a nearby settlement, he introduces himself to the locals, who are immediately overcome with awe at the sight of a centaur. The village elder is particularly moved, nearly brought to tears by the rare opportunity to meet a legendary sage of the forest in person. As they prepare to depart for Reworth Village, he asks the elder about the whereabouts of two individuals named Red and Lex. He learns they are currently away on a hunt, but the villagers promise to send word if they return soon. He eventually finds himself at a bustling marketplace where a merchant warmly welcomes him back. She offers him her finest high-ranked tea leaves as a token of gratitude for his help, leaving him slightly embarrassed by the generous gesture. The merchant continues her enthusiastic pitch, explaining that the neighboring Alper village is famous for its exquisite woodcraft and woven baskets. He finds himself swept up in her energy, unable to refuse her suggestions for their next stop. This leads them toward the outskirts of Alper village, where the local craftsmanship is immediately evident in the beautifully woven baskets lining the path. He stood before a merchant's stall, his gaze lingering on the wares as he considered his next move. The elderly shopkeeper beamed, expressing his gratitude and noting how the young man seemed to be making a name for himself everywhere lately. Kin's mind drifted back to a parent and child he'd encountered recently, realizing the items before him were the very ones they had mentioned, confirming his suspicions about the local trade. As he turned away from the stall, a sudden movement caught his eye, breaking his train of thought. Beside the familiar, fluffy form of his companion, a second creature emerged from the shadows, a large, pristine white cat with piercing eyes. He blinked in disbelief, struck not only by its sudden appearance, but by its unusual size, which seemed far beyond that of any ordinary feline he had ever seen. His breath hitched when the white feline actually spoke, its voice clear and articulate. The sheer impossibility of the situation left him reeling, his eyes widening in a mix of shock and confusion as he struggled to process that these creatures were not just companions, but were capable of complex speech and thought. Ken and the village chief are walking through the settlement when they are suddenly greeted by a large, cheerful white cat. While Ken recognizes the creature with a start, the chief is less than welcoming, gruffly shooing the feline away and insisting they have no food to spare for strays. Stunned by the encounter, he freezes, his eyes wide as the realization dawns on him. He tentatively asks for confirmation, wondering if the creature truly just spoke to them in a human tongue, or if his mind is playing tricks on him. He looks back at the mysterious feline, noting how out of place such a creature is in this environment. With Nini perched on his shoulder, he directly addresses the cat, asking if it possesses the power of speech, but is met only with a silent, knowing gaze that seems to pierce right through him. He tries to dismiss the event as a trick of his mind, a sentiment the large, fluffy cat seems happy to encourage with a simple, innocent meow. However, the white cat nearby remains elusive, leaving him questioning what he truly heard as she maintains a playful, detached distance. The silence is broken when the white cat bursts into laughter, mocking his confusion by revealing she has understood every word. As he reels from the shock, Nini identifies the creature as a Kate Sith, a legendary phantom beast, confirming that this is no ordinary animal but a being of myth. He draws a parallel to the centaurs they've met, troubled by the fact that such mythical beings are appearing in human settlements. While Nini questions the Kate Sith about her presence in the village, he expresses concern for her well-being, noting the village's poverty and offering her a choice without any pressure. The creature responds with a look of such profound, watery-eyed sadness that his resolve immediately crumbles. Recognizing her silent plea for protection, he grumbles about his inability to say no to such a display, though he sternly warns her that his kindness has its limits even as she celebrates her new traveling companion. He officially extends the invitation, promising to provide for her if she joins their journey. The Kate Sith pauses, considering the offer as she prepares to follow her new benefactor, her tail twitching with anticipation. Introducing herself as Talon, the Kate Sith joins the growing group, much to his weary amusement. Their moment of introduction is interrupted by the return of young Max and his massive canine companion, leaving him to marvel at how quickly his band of travelers continues to expand with every passing day. The small, round creature known as Nini contemplated the shifting energies of the world. Since Ken's arrival, the local ley lines had undergone a sudden stabilization, a change that required careful monitoring despite the initial positive signs. Meanwhile, the young man himself strolled through the streets of Resdam accompanied by his energetic young friend and the massive, white-furred canine. They exchanged warm greetings with the townspeople, including a mother and her young daughter, Lori, who were happy to see them back. He soon arrived at the Adventurers Guild to report on his recent success. Marora and the other guild members listened intently as he explained how the issues at the Aru village orchard had been completely resolved, earning him a chorus of impressed cheers. Following the official business, he took a moment to share some sweet treats with the local children. The cookies and bread were an instant hit, with the youngsters clamoring for more of the delicious, sugary snacks. As he continued his walk through the vibrant city, he noticed that his influence was spreading in unexpected ways. New items like melon bread were becoming local sensations, drawing crowds and changing the culinary landscape of the market. Among these new delights was a perfectly prepared egg sandwich, its rich filling promising a satisfying meal for any hungry traveler. He couldn't hide his excitement as he held aloft a jar of freshly made mayonnaise, a culinary breakthrough that even his animal companions seemed to appreciate. Later, he met with the village chief and manhwa near the storage warehouses to finalize the logistics of the fruit trade. The chief expressed his gratitude for the ongoing partnership, while also mentioning that Barry was waiting for him inside. He stepped into the cool, shaded interior of the warehouse, where the scent of fresh fruit filled the air. There, he found the centaur girl resting amidst the crates, looking refreshed and peaceful. They sat together to discuss their future plans, with Barry appearing noticeably more vibrant than before. As they pored over a map of the surrounding lands, she pointed out the path toward her distant home, marking the next stage of their journey. She waves a hand dismissively, insisting that her own desires to see the world shouldn't overshadow his goals. She urges him to prioritize his own journey, and Ken eventually agrees, deciding they will stick to the original plan they discussed. He outlines the path ahead, explaining that their first destination is Bison to forge a new blade for him. He promises that once that task is complete, they will finally set out for her distant homeland, ensuring both their objectives are met. They pore over the map, weighing their options between the safer eastern route toward the capital and the more treacherous western path to Bison. He notes that while the east is more secure, the west is recommended for their specific needs. Despite the risks, he chooses the west, and she readily agrees to the long journey ahead. Later, he prepares a meal, curious about the dietary needs of his feline companion. He asks if the creature prefers meat, eggs, or vegetables, eventually offering a bowl of shredded chicken. He wonders if its tastes align with those of a common house cat, much to the creature's delight as it finds the food delicious. As they share a meal, she finally asks about the sudden addition of the fluffy companion to their group, curious about when it joined them. He explains the recent encounter while they discuss the need to stock up on supplies in Resdam and hunt for food before leaving the safety of the town. That night, he settles into bed, surrounded by his diverse group of companions. The room is quiet as they drift off to sleep, a sense of peace settling over the group before the long road begins. He sleeps soundly, a faint smile touching his lips as he dreams of the road ahead. The next morning, the rugged terrain of the outskirts stretches out before them, a stark reminder of the wilderness they are about to enter. He encourages his companions, noting the high demand for specific gems they might find while hunting and promising to do his best. His attention is suddenly drawn to the feline, who seems to have grown significantly in size. The creature explains that phantom beasts can alter their physical forms using specialized magical arts, much to his surprise. Intrigued, he asks about the distinction between these arts and traditional magic, learning that the terminology varies by region. He admits that he previously lacked the aptitude for magic, but the creature explains that arts depend on the user's environment. This prospect of mastering new techniques fills him with a new sense of purpose and excitement as he looks over his gear. He holds his palm open as instructed, focusing his intent to manifest the rock ice art. A jagged, frozen mass materializes in his hand, its sudden weight and biting cold catching him off guard as he struggles to maintain his grip on the conjured element. Having summoned the element, he tests his control by commanding the frozen shard to shatter into a dozen fragments before ordering the remains to liquefy into a simple puddle on the ground, marveling at the responsiveness of the art. The feline mentor observes the display with a critical eye, explaining that these conjured stones possess remarkable hardness. He warns that the ice is dense enough to inflict significant blunt force trauma, if thrown with enough conviction. This revelation sparks a rigorous training session where the young man repeatedly summons and launches the ice, shattering boulders into dust as his companions watch the destructive potential of his newly acquired skill. Despite the progress, the mental and physical toll of the arts leaves him breathless and leaning on his knees, though his teacher offers little sympathy, urging him to quicken his pace for the journey ahead. The group soon puts these skills to practical use in the wilderness, fending off aggressive avian and serpentine predators with a combination of magic and steel as they gather resources. Upon returning to the settlement, they visit the local smithy where the burly blacksmith greets them warmly, curious about their recent excursions and the spoils they might have brought back from the wilds. During the exchange, the traveler mentions their impending departure for Bison and his ambition to forge a blade from the horn of a Hercules beetle, a statement that causes the smith to freeze in sudden, visible shock. The veteran craftsman demands to see the specimen, and his eyes widen in disbelief as the massive, dark horn is revealed. Its quality and size far exceed anything he expected to see in such a remote village. This sight triggers a somber memory for the smith, who reveals his past life in Bison where a similar, priceless horn led to his ruin. He recounts how it was stolen, resulting in the loss of his business, his reputation, and ultimately, his family. He continues his somber reflection, admitting that back then, he was a wretched man who tried to pay off his own debts by stealing from his best friend. He laments that if he had only stopped the theft, he wouldn't have lost his shop or his home. Ken listens in silence, moved by the blacksmith's raw honesty. Finally, the older man looks down at the Hercules beetle horn in his hands, a genuine smile breaking through his beard as he expresses his deep gratitude for such a magnificent gift. He accepts the thanks with a bright, determined expression, promising to find the blacksmith's old friend, Fort, and his companion, Fonf. The blacksmith wishes him a safe journey, his eyes reflecting a newfound sense of peace. As the young traveler prepares to set out, the The weight of this new responsibility feels like a badge of honor. They share a firm, respectful handshake, a silent pact between two men who have found common ground. Watching the youth depart, the blacksmith feels a surge of inspiration, vowing to redouble his efforts and produce work that truly honors the rare materials he has been entrusted with. The day eventually fades into a quiet twilight as the journey continues across the vast, open landscape. Under the cover of the deepening night, the wind rustles through the dense foliage of the forest, carrying a faint, unsettling sound. Something moves within the shadows, caught by a keen sense of awareness. It is the small, watchful creature who first freezes, its large eyes fixed on the rustling bushes. It senses a presence that doesn't belong, its tiny body tensing in anticipation of a hidden threat. The air itself seems to grow heavy and restless, vibrating with an unspoken tension that lingers in the darkness. He reflects on the path that led him here, a journey marked by both loss and resilience. At 10 years old, a tragic traffic accident claimed his parents, leaving him to be raised by a supportive uncle who ensured his education and well-being were secured through an inheritance. Through years of dedicated study, he navigated university and secured a stable job, eventually achieving the quiet, hard-won independence of living on his own. His daily routine had become a grueling cycle of crowded commutes and demanding client meetings that stretched from early morning visits to afternoon appointments. Yet, amidst the exhaustion of this corporate existence, a strange and comforting sensation begins to surface, the soft, rhythmic kneading of small, furry paws against his side. He smiles peacefully in his sleep, the name, Nini, drifting through his subconscious like a warm memory. He is pulled toward consciousness by the sound of a cat's meow, wondering if it is already time to rise despite his silent alarm. He yearns for just a few more minutes of rest, noting that the clock has yet to strike the hour. He shifts under the covers, his mind wandering to Max as he tries to hold onto the fading warmth of his dreams. He whispers a soft, "Yeah," in response to the unseen presence, slowly beginning the transition from the world of sleep. He finally opens his eyes to the hazy morning light, acknowledging the call to wake up with a quiet promise that he is indeed getting out of bed. He lies still for a moment, staring up at the plain ceiling as he fully awakens to the silence of his room. He turns his gaze toward the window, where the clear, expansive sky and soft clouds await, marking the start of a new day. The sky is vast and clear, with fluffy white clouds drifting lazily across the blue expanse. Below that serene sky, the horizon is a line of lush greenery, where someone lies hidden amongst the tall grass. He lies there, broken and exhausted, his body sprawled across the earth as he struggles to process his surroundings. His voice is a mere rasp, failing him as he tries to respond to the frantic calls of Master echoing in his ears. Above him, the familiar faces of his companions appear, their eyes wide with worry. The small, furry creatures cry out in relief, their voices overlapping as they announce to the others that he has finally opened his eyes. They crowd closer, their small forms a blur of fur and concern as they urge him to stay with them. Their frantic pleas fill the air, a chorus of desperate encouragement for him to fully return to consciousness. He manages to prop himself up, his mind foggy as the memories of a brutal battle against a swarm of grasshoppers begin to resurface. As he winces from the effort, a small cup is pressed to his lips, accompanied by a gentle insistence that he drink. He finds the liquid surprisingly sweet, coating his parched throat as he takes a long, grateful swallow. Seeing him drink, his friends erupt in joy, their relief palpable as they realize he is truly coming back to them. Nearby, the large, white-furred canine sits with a wagging tail, his bright eyes fixed on his recovered friend. He remains calm and patient, a silent sentinel of loyalty amidst the small, bustling creatures. They continue to fuss over him, their collective gaze filled with an intensity of affection and worry. The feline companion encourages him to take another sip, promising that the nourishment will soon restore the strength to his weary limbs. Surrounded by this diverse assembly of loyal friends, from the smallest rodent to the great winged hunter, he finally feels the weight of his exhaustion begin to lift. Their shared bond is a tangible force in the quiet field, a testament to the trials they have faced together. He gingerly tests his limbs, a wave of relief washing over him as his fingers twitch and respond to his command. Looking down, he sees the small, round form of the rodent resting on his chest and reaches out to gently stroke its soft fur, though the creature lets out a startled squeak at the sudden contact. With a weary but genuine smile, he offers his thanks, acknowledging that this is the second time the little creature has come to his rescue. He admits to his own lack of composure during the ordeal, noting that while he might have been loud and frantic, the small companion remains steadfastly by his side. Pushing himself up into a sitting position, he gazes out at the unfamiliar, rolling hills of the meadow and asks where they have taken him. When he inquires about the passage of time, the realization that he has been unconscious for a day and a half brings a sharp look of surprise to his face. His animal companions gather around, their presence a comforting weight in the quiet field. They explain that they moved him from the desolate wasteland where the battle occurred, bringing him to this lush grassland so he could recover in a cleaner, safer environment. He remains somewhat bewildered by the logistics of the move, yet he is deeply impressed by their resourcefulness. He asks if they are still in the same general region, his mind struggling to reconcile the peaceful scenery with the violence he remembers. Slowly finding his feet, he stands tall and expresses his profound gratitude for all the effort they expended on his behalf. The small rodent chirps happily from his shoulder, clearly relieved to see its friend back on his feet and moving once more. In a sudden display of affection, the The large wolf-like dog and the fluffy cat begin to lick his face and hands, their tails wagging with enthusiasm. He laughs softly, apologizing for the distress he caused them and thanking them for their unwavering loyalty. His gaze drifts toward the horizon as he considers their next move, realizing that he cannot linger in this peaceful meadow for long. He mentions the need to return to the city of Restam, remembering that his centaur companion is still waiting for him at the guild. Looking down at his tattered garments, he sees the extent of the damage his gear sustained during the fight. He reaches for his nearby belongings, deciding that a change of clothes is the first step toward regaining his strength and preparing for the journey ahead. Once dressed in his sturdy, high-collared jacket and armor, he feels a renewed sense of purpose and vitality. He draws his sword, testing its weight and noting its solid construction, grateful that he now has a weapon capable of withstanding the rigors of his quest. He examines the spoils of their recent efforts, noting the high value of the aqua and sakura gems resting on the grass, which are worth thousands of credits each. He stands momentarily stunned by the sheer scale of the wealth he now possesses, his eyes wide with disbelief as he calculates the potential impact on the local economy. He discusses the ecological implications with his feline companion, questioning if such a concentrated amount of monster gems might disrupt the natural balance of the area or if the monsters themselves are changing. After considering the risk of crashing the guild's market with such a massive influx, he decides it is wiser to hold onto the gems for the time being rather than exchanging them immediately. With the decision made, he turns to his companions and suggests it is time to head back, his stomach growling as the adrenaline of the day fades. He suddenly realizes with a start that he neglected to prepare a meal for his animal friends, offering a sheepish apology as they look on with expectant eyes while the bird and snake watch from nearby. Moments later, he settles down to enjoy a hearty sandwich and a steaming cup of coffee, the simple pleasure of the meal bringing a look of pure bliss to his face. As he eats, he notices the small rodent watching him intently and kindly asks if the creature is enjoying its own portion of the food. He laughs warmly, recalling how Shamiel would likely approve of such a robust meal, especially the golden brown fried morsels on the plate that he offers to share. He smiles gently as he recalls a promise made to share a feast, a quiet determination settling over him to see that vow fulfilled. He watches as Nini expresses deep gratitude for being remembered. A wave of guilt washes over him, and he softly apologizes for bringing the small creature into this new world, expressing a wish that Nini could have lived a more peaceful and happy life elsewhere. His thoughts then drift back to Shamiel and the life he left behind. He reflects on how he used to be consumed by the stresses of education and employment, finding even the simple act of waking up early to be a chore, but now he finds himself genuinely enjoying each day. This realization brings back memories of his previous existence in a bustling, modern city. He acknowledges that while he didn't consciously choose to leave that world, a mysterious realization suggests that perhaps his soul had been yearning for this change all along. Looking out over the serene landscape, he concludes that this is truly a beautiful world. He feels a profound sense of gratitude toward Shamiel for bringing him to this place, where he can finally find true contentment. The city around them stands as a testament to this new life, its architecture and atmosphere a far cry from the cold steel and glass of his past, offering a sense of belonging he never felt before. A radiant smile spreads across his face as he realizes just how fortunate he is to be granted a second chance at life, surrounded by the animal companions he loves. Feels like an incredible blessing he is determined to cherish. Turning his attention back to the present, he offers a piece of food to Nini, encouraging the little rodent to eat and enjoy the meal they are sharing together. The small creature gazes up at him, eyes shimmering with unshed tears of joy. Nini whispers a heartfelt thank you, deeply moved by his unwavering kindness and the bond they share. With a vigorous nod, Nini takes a large, enthusiastic bite of the treat. Seeing the creature's pure delight, he asks with a warm, infectious smile if the food is as delicious as it looks. As the sun shines brightly over the horizon, the entire group gathers together in the open field. He lets out a contented sigh and agrees wholeheartedly that their life together in this world is perfect. The Restam Adventurers Guild stood as a beacon of order in the town, its stone walls housing the bustling activity of those who lived by the sword and the quest. Inside, Marora, the guild master, leaned forward with an eager glint in her eyes, asking the young traveler exactly how many items he was willing to part with for the guild's coffers. He replied by offering a staggering 1,000 gems, a number so high it left the staff speechless, and the guild master wondering if the guild's finances could even handle such a massive transaction. Later, the village chief spoke with a heavy heart about the lives lost and the exhaustion of his people, but his expression softened as he thanked the young man for preventing an even greater catastrophe. Sitting comfortably, the traveler admitted he found it hard to believe his actions were as significant as the chief suggested, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sudden praise. When asked about his future, he confirmed that his primary goal remained the journey itself, prompting a thoughtful nod from the elder who respected his wanderlust. The chief then proposed a plan, suggesting that the young man should register his presence at guilds in every town he visited to ensure he had support and a way to stay connected wherever he went. He explained that this network would allow guilds to share information and resources, a proposal the traveler readily accepted, recognizing the mutual benefit for both himself and the communities he would visit. Stepping back outside, he finally reunited with his loyal companions, offering a sincere apology for leaving them to wait for so long while he handled the village's affairs. He listens as Shamiel explains that their stay at the guild was facilitated by a prior report, leaving him intrigued by the hidden complexities of their world. The morning sun soon bathes the guild's exterior in light as the final preparations for their departure are completed within the quiet town. A bounty of supplies is meticulously gathered: fresh bread, butter, sugar, and even coffee. Sandwiches, fruit for Barry, and chicken for Talon are packed alongside the funds secured from the gem exchange, ensuring they are well-equipped for the road ahead. Standing before the guild, he receives a formal and warm farewell from Marora and the staff, marking the official conclusion of their time in this region. The village chief offers a heartfelt blessing, clasping hands and wishing him and his companions safety and lasting happiness on their journey. Setting out on the open road, the group heads toward the city of Chester, their hearts filled with anticipation for the new landscapes and people they will soon encounter. Suddenly, the peace is shattered as a massive dark brown giant salamander erupts from a nearby stream, its predatory eyes locked onto the unsuspecting travelers. As the beast lunges with terrifying speed, Max barks a frantic warning, and he desperately tries to coordinate a defense against the overwhelming size of the creature. The monster's maw snaps shut just inches away, leaving him momentarily paralyzed by the sheer ferocity of the ambush as the group struggles to find their footing. Before the creature can strike again, a flash of steel cuts through the air as a mysterious swordsman with long, light-colored hair intervenes, effortlessly dispatching the threat and offering a reassuring smile to the shaken travelers. He stands tall, his presence commanding as Shamiel calls out his name, Haspel. The knight seems taken aback by the swordsman's casual remark about his cute companions, a stark contrast to the gravity of their recent battle. The swordsman's identity leaves Kin reeling with shock as Shamiel reveals that this man is the savior of their world. Overwhelmed by the revelation, the young man wonders if he is standing before a literal deity, while the warrior formally introduces himself as Haspel Dalkish. He explains his divine nature, revealing that he has taken a human form to watch over the world he once saved. The companions listen in awe as the weight of his words settles, though the conversation takes a lighter turn as the small creatures around them chime in with their own perspectives on his legendary status. Demonstrating his extraordinary abilities, he utilizes a storage skill to effortlessly seal a massive boulder into a small gem. He explains that this is standard equipment for someone in his position, further cementing Kin's admiration for the sheer utility of such power. He then turns his attention to the group's animal companions, patting them affectionately and noting their good nature. He questions whether Kin was the one who tamed these creatures, acknowledging the bond they share. Seeing Kin's hesitation, he suggests that the young man needs more experience and proposes a journey to the daunting shadow-cutting mountain range. The suggestion sends Kin into a panic, his face contorting in fear at the thought of such a dangerous locale, while the swordsman sighs at the boy's lack of refinement. The conversation continues with the companions discussing his blunt assessment of Kin's skills. He admits that while he has saved the world before, he is still reacquainting himself with its current state and the nuances of those living in it. He shifts the focus to their immediate plans, inquiring about their destination. Kin explains that while their ultimate goal is Baizen, they are currently making their way toward the city of Chester. Recognizing Kin's inexperience, he offers to join them on their journey to Chester, serving as both a guide and a protector. The offer catches Kin completely off guard, his eyes widening at the prospect of traveling with such a legendary figure. He accepts Kin's enthusiastic gratitude, promising to share his vast knowledge along the way. As the group sets off, the atmosphere is a mix of excitement and trepidation, with Kin still struggling to process the sudden turn of events. He listens as the legendary swordsman explains the necessity of a mount for their journey through the sea of trees. Haspel emphasizes that understanding the terrain of the shadow-cutting mountain range is vital for what lies ahead, suggesting that Kin's current pace might be too slow for the trials to come. Despite the gravity of the mission, the blonde warrior laughs heartily, suggesting they take the opportunity to greet the local inhabitants of the forest. The young traveler, however, is visibly overwhelmed, realizing his protests are falling on deaf ears as the older man's boisterous enthusiasm remains completely unshakable. The party eventually sets out, a diverse caravan of humans, a centaur, and their loyal beast companions trekking through the dense wilderness. As the sun begins to dip, they calculate that the mountains are still 2 days away and decide to establish a camp for the night to preserve their strength. Taking charge of the evening meal, the youth begins searing thick slabs of meat over a campfire, much to the surprise of their new companion. Haspel watches with interest as the boy prepares food for the entire group, including the animals, and suggests that a high-grade magic gem could provide a more efficient and powerful heat source for such a feast. Confused by the suggestion, the young cook listens as the veteran knight, Shamiel, explains the nuances of fire aspect gems. He produces a specialized tool, a gem cutter, and demonstrates how a specific type of stone, known for its intense and enduring heat, is the preferred choice for a traveler's portable stove. Following the knight's instructions, he carefully splits the gem with a satisfying click, marveling at the precision of the tool. Once the fragment is placed within the stove, the flames roar to life with newfound intensity, allowing him to quickly finish the soup and toasted bread to accompany the main course. The resulting steak, drizzled in a rich sauce made from the meat's own juices, is a triumph that leaves the legendary hero speechless. Even the smallest companions, like the round rodent Nini, dive into the meal with unbridled joy, savoring every flavorful bite of the perfectly cooked meat. As the group gathers around the makeshift table, the atmosphere is one of warmth and camaraderie, a brief respite from the rigors of the road. Haspel, his mouth still full, declares that the boy's culinary skills are so exceptional he could easily find work as a professional chef in any city in the realm. Later, as the campfire embers glow in the dark, the group settles in for a watchful rest. The silence of the forest is a reminder of the gem monsters that roam these lands, creatures whose very existence is tied to the magical stones they had used earlier that evening, making vigilance essential. Peering into the gloom, the young man tests his developing senses, noticing strange, shifting colors amidst the trees that others might miss. Shamiel guides him through the different stages of magical perception, pointing out a crimson avian shape in the distance, a nocturnal predator known as a black mosquito eater, waiting for its next meal to fall to the forest floor. He recoils in terror as the winged predators known as nightmares dive from the sky. Shamiel shouts a warning to beware their venomous talons, which can plunge a victim into a decade-long slumber. Beside the trembling youth, Haspel remains unbothered, explaining that these creatures are the bane of adventurers, leaving their sleeping prey to be devoured by beasts. He then notes that gem monsters also begin to appear when the rains fall. Following the swordsman's gaze, the group observes a patch of treacherous terrain near the water's edge. Haspel explains that while the ground appears to be simple sand, the falling rain has transformed it into a thick, churning mire. Suddenly, the surface erupts as a sleek creature leaps from the sludge, catching the young traveler completely off guard. He watches with wide-eyed wonder, his fear momentarily replaced by a sudden, boyish enthusiasm as he recognizes the potential for sport. Haspel identifies the creature as a brown mud fish, a species that can be easily harvested by those with a quick hand. They pause their journey for a moment of levity as the entire party, including their animal companions, gathers by the shore to haul in the bounty. The air is filled with excitement until Haspel reveals the grim reality of the landscape. When the rain ceases, the fish enter a death-like trance as the mud hardens back into sand. He warns that the area is a deceptive death trap. Anyone caught in the shifting sands when the rain returns will be swallowed whole by the earth. To prove his point, the veteran warrior tosses a stone into the seemingly solid ground, watching as it is silently consumed by the hungry silt. With the lesson concluded, he signals for the trek to resume, though the young man can only wail in protest about his desire for a quiet, safe existence. Despite the complaints, the group continues their march toward the looming peaks of the shadow-cutting mountain range. Kin and Haspel venture deep into the sea of trees, where the young man marvels at the alien flora that looks nothing like the world he once knew. To secure a mount, the swordsman prepares a trap using fresh meat as bait for a local hound. They retreat into the shadows of the dense foliage, waiting in tense silence for their quarry to appear. Suddenly, a massive white wolf bursts from the undergrowth, its snarl echoing through the clearing. The beast lunges with terrifying speed, catching the pair off guard. As the creature snaps its jaws, Haspel bellows for his companion to strike it directly on the nose to assert dominance. He manages to subdue the creature, offering it a place by his side as a companion. To his astonishment, the wolf bows its head in a gesture of absolute submission, acknowledging him as its new master. Haspel explains that once a monster recognizes a master, they can be officially registered or even traded. Overjoyed by the bond, the youth bestows a new name upon his loyal follower, Sirius. The swordsman formally introduces himself as Haspel Dalekish, and the two share a moment of mutual respect. They observe Sirius, noting that his pristine white fur marks him as a rare subspecies, a find of significant value. Their conversation is cut short, however, as a strange rustling draws their eyes toward a cluster of trees that shouldn't be moving. They watch in disbelief as the very ground seems to walk, revealing a massive creature known as a turtle tree. Haspel explains that the trees on its back are actually parasitic growths that store nutrients. He reassures his companion that despite their size, these monsters are relatively easy to defeat if one simply severs the upper parasitic stalks. With a single, fluid strike, he demonstrates his point by cleaving through one of the thick stalks. As the parasitic plant is severed, a small, glowing crystal falls to the forest floor, a valuable byproduct of the creature's unique biology. Inspired by the display, the young man attempts to help clear the path with his own blade. However, his lack of experience in the treacherous terrain betrays him. His foot snags on a hidden root, and he tumbles forward, losing his balance and falling headlong into the thick brush. He gasps as a sudden, crushing pressure wraps around his chest. The air is forced from his lungs as something thick and muscular coils tightly around him, pinning his arms to his sides and dragging him further into the shadows. A massive, pale worm-like monster reveals itself, having successfully ensnared the boy in its powerful grip. Sirius barks a frantic warning while Haspel draws his sword, realizing with a grim expression that they have stumbled upon a dangerous subspecies of gem worm that is far more aggressive than its common kin. He is suddenly released as a powerful strike severs the creature's grip. Haspel stands over the remains of the gem worm, breathing a sigh of relief that his companion is unharmed, though the close call with the parasitic tree still lingers in the air. The swordsman explains that this particular subspecies, the black killworm, is an omnivore that thrives by using the turtle tree as a host to lure in unsuspecting prey. Kin listens intently, realizing just how unforgiving the sea of trees can be, while they begin the task of harvesting the valuable gems left behind by the defeated monsters. As they work, he asks his mentor how he manages such a vast collection of gems. Haspel shrugs dismissively, admitting that he has accumulated more than he could ever use and finds the constant management a bit of a chore. He goes on to explain a critical rule of this world. Gems left near ley lines will eventually cause monsters to manifest once more, making thorough collection a necessity rather than just a pursuit of profit. This revelation leaves the young traveler wide-eyed, realizing the ecological impact of their actions. The veteran warrior notes that his former comrade, Shamiel, was always meticulous about such things, and he encourages his student to either use the gems or sell them to the guild rather than letting them go to waste. Ken considers the practical applications, even thinking of how slimes could be utilized to keep their gear and surroundings clean. Resuming their trek through the dense foliage, he activates a purification mist to mask their presence as they navigate the winding trails. Before long, the canopy thins, revealing the distant structures of a hidden settlement nestled within the heart of the forest. They soon arrive at the gates of the peaceful village, where the rustic charm of the wooden houses offers a stark contrast to the dangers they just escaped. Haspel is immediately recognized by the locals, and an elderly man approaches with a welcoming smile, glad to see the swordsman has returned safely. The young man is introduced to the village chief and a curious cat-eared girl, learning that his arrival is seen as a sign of hope for a world that was once on the brink of despair. He finds himself overwhelmed by their gratitude, struggling to process the weight of the expectations being placed upon his shoulders. While they settle in, his small rodent companion offers a bit of perspective, explaining that the souls of the fallen have already moved on and that he shouldn't carry the burden of the past. Haspel then turns to their hosts, politely requesting a place to rest for the night as they continue their journey through these lands. He is led into a sturdy, well-crafted log cabin that feels remarkably spacious and warm. It is the perfect sanctuary for the weary travelers and their animal companions to recover their strength before the next leg of their adventure begins. He is shown a guest room with a beautifully woven rug and a comfortable bed. The host explains that everything is handmade, though few in the village can weave such white cloth. Turning to his companions, the young cat-eared girl gazes at him with wide-eyed admiration, asking if he was the one who tamed the powerful monsters. In response, the swordsman clarifies that the hounds were actually a gift from Lord Shamiel, and that he and the young man simply cooperated to bring them here. The girl is deeply impressed by their connection to such a prestigious figure. Moments later, a young boy named Layut introduces himself and offers his own bed for the swordsman to use, while the young man insists he's fine sleeping with his fluffy companions. The cat-eared girl can't resist reaching out to pet the soft fur of the creatures. As evening approaches, the group stands outside the dwelling. The boy warns them that the village gates are closed at sunset because the forest becomes too dangerous to navigate in the dark. He goes on to explain the legend of the Black Mist, a terrifying phenomenon that swallows people whole. While the villagers are safe within their borders, those caught outside are never seen again, a thought that sends a shiver through the young girl. To lighten the mood, they gather for a hearty meal of fried food and soup. The young man is amazed by the quality of the food, which the boy reveals was kept fresh using a special storage technique. After the feast, they relax with some wine. The swordsman enjoys the local brew, while the young man prepares to turn in for the night, grateful for the hospitality. Settling into the soft bedding, he finds himself flanked by the boy and the cat-eared girl, both eager to share the warmth of the fluffy companions. He welcomes them with a tired smile, understanding their need for comfort. While the house falls into a deep, peaceful slumber, a dark, ominous presence drifts silently past the window, a reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond the village walls. The night passed without incident, and morning arrived. He stirred, slowly opening his eyes to find the young cat-eared girl, Layut, curled up right beside him. As the fog of sleep cleared, a sudden jolt of realization struck him, and he sat up with a start. She, however, seemed unfazed, bowing deeply and offering her sincere thanks for the wonderful dinner they had shared the night before. With a cheerful farewell, she skipped away, leaving him sitting there, still trying to process the unexpected morning wake-up call. He eventually pulled himself out of bed, stretching his limbs and offering a groggy greeting to the rest of the group. The large white wolf watched him with a calm, knowing gaze as the morning sun began to fill the room. At the breakfast table, the atmosphere was light as they enjoyed a simple meal. His companion leaned in, asking if he had noticed anything unusual during the night, but he could only offer a confused look in return, completely unaware of what might have transpired while he slept. The swordsman chuckled, declaring his victory in some unspoken wager. He then pointedly asked if the young man understood the reason behind their guest's choice of sleeping arrangements, a question that only deepened his confusion. He was then met with a startling revelation. The girl had apparently taken a liking to him. His eyes widened in pure shock as he stammered out his belief that Layut was a boy, only to be corrected that she was, in fact, a young lady. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, he buried his face in his hands, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The weight of the misunderstanding pressed down on him, while the animals looked on, seemingly amused by his plight. His companion continued to tease him, suggesting they might stay a bit longer, but he insisted they leave immediately. The swordsman merely smiled, noting that beast folk matured quickly and that the girl would be an adult before he knew it, which only served to increase his frantic blushing. He felt completely out of his depth, the very mention of romance and marriage sending him into a panic. As they gathered their belongings, the village chief approached them with a parting gift of local liquor, wishing them a safe journey through the woods. With a final wave, the young girl called out, promising to grow up quickly for their next meeting. He and the swordsman then turned toward the dense tree line, stepping back into the shadows of the forest to continue their quest. The sun shines brightly over the peaceful streets of the town, where the architecture reflects a long history of stability and trade. Within a local workshop, the young traveler and his sturdy companion conclude their business with the craftsman. The man laughs heartily, bidding them a warm farewell and promising that the gear will be ready for their next journey, while the youth offers a polite, grateful smile. Outside a cozy tavern nearby, the massive white wolf indulges in a bowl of water, his tail wagging slightly as he enjoys the brief respite from the road. Inside the establishment, the group settles around a wooden table laden with hearty stews and mugs of ale. The nobleman remarks on the quality of the establishment, noting that it is one of the few places in this region that accommodates such large and unusual companions. Their meal is interrupted when a man in a formal uniform approaches, his eyes fixed greedily on the white wolf. He introduces himself as a representative of a trading company and immediately begins inquiring about the price of the magnificent beast, much to the young man's visible shock and indignation. He is met with a cold, immediate refusal from the nobleman, who doesn't even look up from his drink. Undeterred, the merchant persists, suggesting that money is no object and even eyeing the other smaller companions. But the air in the room grows heavy with the nobleman's silent, mounting fury. Realizing he has overstepped, the merchant departs, leaving a calling card on the table as a parting gesture. The young traveler vents his frustration, declaring that his companions are family, not property, while his mentor remains stoic, his gaze fixed on the departing figure. He then turns his attention to the card, identifying the man as a member of the Ustal Trading Company. The name carries a weight of ill repute that seems to darken the mood of the entire table as they realize who they have just encountered. As they discuss the encounter, the harsh reality of the world's underbelly is laid bare, the existence of a thriving trade in lives, where both beasts and demi-humans are treated as mere commodities. The young man's expression shifts from anger to a deep, unsettling realization of the dangers they now face in a land where even loyalty has a price tag. He pondered the grim reality of the world, reflecting on how the system of slavery had devolved from a desperate safety net for the impoverished into a cruel industry of exploitation. He knew that if he didn't find a way to navigate this peacefully, Haspel's more direct and potentially violent methods would become the only option, a path he desperately wanted to avoid for the sake of everyone involved. Turning to his companions, he expressed his reluctance to engage in unnecessary conflict, yet his resolve was clear. He would not stand by while others were victimized. Haspel, sensing the young man's conviction, agreed to follow his lead for the time being, though he made it known that he would intervene if the situation spiraled out of control. With their resolve hardened, they finalized their plans to depart for the city of Chester the following day. The next morning found the group gathered outside their lodgings, the crisp air of a new day filling their lungs as they prepared for the journey ahead. Their departure was momentarily delayed when a familiar voice called out from the street, drawing their attention toward a figure approaching them. The man was an old acquaintance of Hector's, a fellow guard who greeted the veteran warrior with a mix of surprise and warmth. As they exchanged pleasantries, the man offered a word of caution, mentioning that some unsavory characters from the guild had been seen loitering nearby, casting a shadow over their planned route. Meanwhile, within the guild's walls, a heated confrontation was unfolding as the guild master stood his ground against a persistent merchant from the Ustal Trading Company. The merchant's offer was staggering, promising 10 times the usual reward in exchange for the rare creatures in Kin's company, but the guild master remained unmoved. He reminded the man that the guild was an organization built on mutual aid and the protection of its members' autonomy, not a marketplace for lives, and flatly refused to issue any orders that would compromise an adventurer's companions. Infuriated by the refusal, he spat a final insult about the guild's meager state before storming out of the office. The guild master's voice followed him, a stern command never to return, dismissing the man as nothing more than a slave to his own greed. The young traveler stood before the guild master shortly thereafter, his expression heavy with guilt as he apologized for the turmoil his presence had brought to the institution. The older man simply offered a reassuring smile, telling the youth that he had done nothing wrong and that the guild would always stand by those who acted with honor and integrity. Later, as they studied a map of the region, the group discussed the reach of the Ustal Trading Company and the potential dangers of their original path. Hector pointed out that the company had a strong presence in Chester and suggested a detour toward East Pond to bypass their influence entirely. Kin readily accepted the change in plans, reaffirming his vow that he would never treat his companions as mere property to be sold, regardless of the price offered. Seeing the depth of the boy's compassion, Hector couldn't help but smile, heartened by the bond Kin shared with his familiars. He urged the group to set off immediately while he stayed behind to ensure no one followed them, prompting a sincere word of thanks from the young traveler. With a final wave and a reminder to look out for one another, he watched as Kin and his loyal companions began their trek through the city gates. The path ahead was uncertain, but as they moved toward the horizon, the veteran felt a sense of pride in the young man's unwavering principles. Kin and Hector enjoy a final, hearty meal before their departure. The tavern is filled with the savory aroma of sausages and potatoes, a specialty that the young man finds incredibly delicious, especially when paired with a cold drink. He expresses his sincere gratitude to Fort, the kind shopkeeper, as they prepare to leave. Fenrir stands ready, laden with supplies for the long road ahead, while the woman offers a final word of encouragement, urging them to cherish the bonds they have formed. They set off, leaving the stone towers of the city behind. Hector rides alongside on his horse, while the two smaller dogs trail closely, their eyes bright with the excitement of the open road. Suddenly, the peaceful departure is shattered by a sharp cry as a small calico cat is snatched up. A group of armed men on horseback blocks their path, their leader demanding the immediate surrender of the animals. Kin's expression hardens with indignation at the sudden confrontation. He realizes they are being cornered and that a fight is imminent. Hector urges him not to draw his sword, but to focus on escaping the city's reach. They spur their mounts into a gallop, fleeing the pursuing guards who are determined to seize their companions. The path ahead opens into a vast, treacherous wetland, the ground becoming increasingly unstable. He notices a dangerous stretch of shifting sand lying directly in their path. Realizing it is a natural trap, he calls out to Max and Aniray, gauging if they have the strength to leap across the dangerous expanse. They launch themselves into the air with powerful strides. Fenrir and the smaller animals soar over the hazard, while the pursuers' horses skitter to a halt at the very edge of the trap. The heavy war horses of the guards are not so agile, plunging headlong into the suffocating mire. As the guards struggle against the sinking sand, Eustal bellows in a fit of powerless fury, watching his prize slip away while Kin looks back with a mix of relief and concern. Watching the scene unfold from a safe distance, Haspel remarks on the boy's innate kindness, noting how he worried for his enemies even in the heat of escape. The guild master simply smiles, knowing that the quicksand is shallow enough that the guards will survive, and that Kin's group is finally free to continue their journey. He had watched them depart with a sense of duty, and now, at the city gates, Hector clasped Kin's shoulder in a firm grip of gratitude. The older man urged the youth to continue supporting the adventurers of Lestam, a request Kin accepted with a determined nod before the group turned their horses toward the horizon, leaving their temporary home behind. Days later, they continued their journey under a bright sky as Haspel proposed their next destination, East Pawn. The suggestion sparked a wave of excitement in the young traveler, who looked up at his companion with newfound admiration, his eyes shining with the thrill of the road ahead as they stood before the grand architecture of the Lestam Adventurers Guild. While he looked toward the future with bright eyes, the guild master shared a hearty laugh with his associate inside the guild's wood-paneled office. They reminisced about Hector's unorthodox methods while noting that the young hero was currently operating on his own, a temporary separation in their ongoing travels. While he remained behind to manage the guild's affairs, the silver-haired noble met privately with a cloaked operative named Shurem to discuss the aftermath of their recent conflict. He inquired if the guild's assistance was required, but she remained confident, suggesting that direct intervention would be unnecessary and that they should handle the lingering threads with discretion. As he moved through the cobblestone streets, he maintained a sharp awareness of their surroundings, eventually whispering a confirmation to his companion that they were being shadowed. She acknowledged the threat with a subtle nod, her gaze fixed forward as they lured their pursuers into a quiet alleyway. Suddenly, he saw them lunge from the shadows, blades drawn as they invoked the name of the Eustal Trading Company. Their aggression was met with a cold, effortless grace. The noble and the operative danced through the assault, leaving the attackers grasping at air and trembling with a sudden, paralyzing fear. Because of his effortless defense, the thugs scrambled away into the darkness, their cries of retreat echoing off the stone walls. He watched them go with a weary sigh, acknowledging the persistent reach of their enemies before turning to accept the operative's quiet thanks for his assistance in the skirmish. As they vanished into the night, she prepared to set their grander plan in motion, shifting the scene to a moonlit cathedral. There, a corrupt official cowered before the terrifying visage of a dragon, as a voice of divine judgment thundered through the hall, accusing him of forsaking his duties for the sake of greed and demanding he face the consequences of his avarice. He begged for his life, promising to sever all ties with the Eustal Trading Company and liberate every slave under his control. Once the divine intervention concluded, the operative thanked the noble for his convincing performance. He then prepared to reunite with the slumbering youth, satisfied that their secret maneuver had successfully dismantled a major piece of their enemy's influence. The group's animal companions gather, each displaying their unique traits. A small, bushy-tailed creature named Shamuel perches atop a rock, while a long-eared rabbit called Laban and a sharp-eyed bird named Talon observe their surroundings with keen interest. Suddenly, the young traveler finds himself overwhelmed by a mountain of white fur. The massive wolf companion has playfully lunged, burying him beneath a soft, suffocating weight. He struggles to emerge from the sea of fluff, laughing as he tries to push the giant beast back. He realizes that managing such a large and affectionate companion requires a bit more strategy than he initially thought, especially when the wolf seems determined to shower him with attention. As the sun rises over their campsite, he steps out of the newly acquired tent to greet the morning. He calls out a cheerful hello to his companions, including the young Sakura, noting that the shelter he purchased in Restam was a wise investment, mirroring the setup he saw Haspel using previously. The morning meal is a lavish affair, prepared with the help of his young companion, Sakura. A wide variety of fresh vegetables, eggs, and sliced bread are laid out for everyone to enjoy. He encourages his friends to build their own sandwiches, while the nobleman watches with a look of mild surprise and growing appetite. He takes a large bite of bread topped with butter and sugar, a simple treat that brings back memories of his youth. Nearby, the small, squirrel-like creature happily munches on its own portion, mirroring the young man's satisfaction. The nobleman is equally impressed, savoring the flavors and remarking on the quality of the provisions. He learns that these delicious cookies and breads were sourced from the town of Restam, a detail that clearly pleases him as he continues his meal. With breakfast finished, they turn their attention to the journey ahead, consulting a map of the region. Their current position is marked near Restam, with the path ahead stretching toward East Apon while steering clear of Chester, as they carefully calculate the distance and terrain they must cover. He listens intently as the local system of measurement is explained. A single lyot is equivalent to a meter, and 1,000 of them make up a liral, or a kilometer. With this new understanding, he realizes the vast scale of their trek, noting that the distance to East Apon is roughly 2,000 lirals. He listened intently as the local units of weight were explained, learning that a single gram was known as a belts, while a kilogram was called a belk. The simplicity of the conversion, 1,000 belts to a belk, seemed to fascinate him as he committed the new terms to memory. He found the sheer distance to East Apon even more daunting after understanding the new measurements, realizing that 1,800 liral still lay ahead of them. He calculated the grueling timeline, noting that even by horse, the journey to Chester alone would take 18 days, and the full trek would span nearly 40. In response to his visible concern, Haspel revealed the existence of transfer gates, points on the map that allowed for instantaneous travel between distant locations. He stared at the intricate chart, his mind reeling at the possibility of bypassing weeks of travel in a single step. The young traveler's eyes widened as he realized they could reach Baizen in the blink of an eye, a prospect that seemed almost too convenient. However, his excitement was tempered when he learned that these gates were typically reserved for the elite gate knights, not ordinary travelers. Despite the allure of instant travel, he felt a sudden pang of hesitation, realizing that skipping the distance meant missing the world itself. He looked at his companions, his voice wavering as he confessed his desire to actually experience the journey and see the lands they were crossing rather than simply appearing at the destination. Seeing his resolve, Haspel offered a warm, knowing smile and admitted that he, too, wished to savor the experience of the road. This shared sentiment brought a sense of relief to the young man, reaffirming their bond as fellow travelers committed to the path ahead. They ultimately decided to forego the gates for now, choosing instead to embrace the long walk as a valuable experience for the group. Even the animals seemed to sense the weight of the decision, standing ready for the trek that lay ahead. As they set out, he reflected on the vastness of this new world compared to the small, isolated country he once knew. The map revealed a complex tapestry of islands and nations, a stark contrast to the unified peace he was beginning to observe here, which he found both strange and fascinating. He pondered the stability of the region, noting how the guild's management seemed to prevent the devastating wars that plagued other lands. With a deep breath of the fresh morning air, he felt a profound appreciation for this era of peace as they packed their gear to finally depart. Just as they were ready to depart, he was caught off guard when Haspel mentioned they could call upon a great eagle in emergencies. He looked up in astonishment as a massive bird of prey circled above, a reminder that while they chose the path of the traveler, extraordinary help was never far away. He looks up at the massive bird, wondering if it's truly time to depart. With a nod of permission, the smaller companions scramble onto the creature's broad back, settling into its thick feathers. As the group prepares, the nobleman explains that his own mastery of flight magic allows him to follow without a mount. The young traveler can hardly believe such a feat is possible. A powerful downstroke of the great wings sends a surge of air through the clearing. The majestic creature takes to the sky, its wingspan dwarfing the landscape below as it catches the rising thermals. High above the world, the youth lets out a cry of pure joy, the wind whipping through his hair as he experiences the thrill of flight for the first time. During the ascent, the avian guardian speaks, recognizing the boy as the prophesied hero from another world. He responds with modest gratitude, though the weight of the title clearly lingers. They glide effortlessly over rolling hills and dense forests, the speed of their travel far exceeding anything possible on foot. In the distance, a shimmering white spire pierces the horizon, marking the next destination of their long journey. The flight concludes as his boots finally strike the solid earth once more, the transition from sky to land sudden and jarring. Standing at the edge of a new territory, he and his loyal companions gaze toward the mysterious landmark, ready to face whatever lies ahead. He gazes up at the towering pillar of light, listening as the nobleman explains that this is a transfer gate, the very threshold they must cross to reach their destination. Following the instruction to blink twice, the young hero finds the radiant light replaced by a mundane, solid rock wall, a trick of the eyes explained as a natural concealment for those without the proper sight. This sudden transformation leaves him momentarily stunned, staring at the jagged stone where a gateway had stood only seconds before, wondering if the path has truly vanished. Reaching out to touch the surface, he feels the coarse texture of the cliff. Yet another double blink reveals the truth, a perfectly smooth, artificial barrier hidden beneath the magical veil. The nobleman clarifies that the illusion serves as a safeguard, noting that the physical laws of this realm are far more malleable and prone to divergence than those of the world the boy once called home. With a thunderous rumble, the hidden entrance finally yields to their presence, sliding open to reveal a dark, cavernous passage that beckons the travelers forward into the unknown. They begin the arduous ascent up a narrow, steep flight of stairs, eventually emerging into a starkly different environment, a sterile, brightly lit corridor that feels strangely out of place within the mountain. Recognizing the familiar interface of an elevator, the youth steps toward the wall and presses a button, selecting the 24th floor as their next destination with practiced ease. The mechanical doors slide open with a soft chime, and the entire party, including the large wolf and the smaller companions, files into the small transport chamber as he prepares to initiate the ascent. As the lift carries them upward, he assures his companions that such technology is second nature to him, and they soon arrive at a high balcony overlooking the vast landscape they just left behind. He emerged from the forest shrine, squinting against the bright light as the vast landscape of East Apon stretched out before him. Looking toward the distant horizon, he wondered aloud if that was their destination and if they would manage to reach it before the sun set. As the group descended toward the valley, the path ahead became clearer, revealing the sprawling outskirts of the great city. Upon reaching the massive stone gates, their arrival sparked immediate chaos among the local populace. Seeing the towering form of the White Wolf, the townspeople fled in terror, while the armored guards scrambled to their positions, shouting for the perceived monsters to halt. The guards trembled, their faces pale with fear as they braced for what they believed was an all-out assault on their home. One of them could barely hold his spear, convinced that these beasts were there to raise the city. Stepping forward to defuse the tension, the nobleman addressed the panicked soldiers, assuring them that they were merely travelers and not a hostile force. The guards' fear turned to utter shock as they recognized him, marveling at how much he had changed since his last visit, before he calmly presented his credentials to verify their identity. After a profuse apology for the misunderstanding, the guards stood aside and welcomed the party into the bustling streets of East Apon. Taking in the impressive architecture and lively atmosphere, the group decided their first priority should be to locate the local Adventurers Guild. While they navigated the city, the nobleman remarked that although he visited every few years, this was his first time approaching by land rather than by sea. They passed by a wide river filled with ships before finally arriving at the grand, clock-towered building that served as the guild's headquarters. Entering the hall, they were greeted by a cheerful clerk who stood ready to assist them. Stepping up to the counter, the young traveler politely requested to register with the organization, much to the delight of the professional behind the desk. The clerk efficiently processed the request, placing a blank card into a mechanical device that hummed with magical energy. Moments later, a finished identification card was produced, marking the official start of their journey in this new territory. He beamed with excitement as he held the new card, feeling a surge of accomplishment. Turning back to the clerk, the group inquired about nearby lodging, securing 2 large rooms for the night as they prepared to explore everything the city had to offer. He stood by as the guild receptionist marveled at the small calico cat, gently stroking its fur and commenting on its unexpected cuteness. The rest of the pack waited patiently nearby, their presence a stark contrast to the delicate interaction at the counter. With their business concluded for the day, a sense of relief washed over him. He turned to his companions with a bright, determined smile, suggesting that they take the rest of the day to rest and recover. His eyes sparkled with anticipation as he proposed that they spend the following day exploring the sights and sounds of East Apon together. The morning sun filters into the room at the East Apon Adventurers Guild Inn. Ken wakes to the rough, affectionate licks of Fenrir, his massive white companion. He greets the group with a sleepy yawn, noting how comfortable their stay has been so far. He joins Haspel for breakfast, the table laden with a simple but hearty meal. As they eat, they discuss their plans for the day. While Haspel suggests a tour of the city, Ken is eager to secure more food supplies, prompting Haspel to offer his guidance for the excursion. They soon arrive at the grand entrance of the Adventurers Guild, a towering stone structure. Inside, Ken approaches the counter to inquire about selling a large quantity of gems, catching the clerk off guard with the sheer scale of his request. He is then introduced to Diamante, the guild master, a striking woman with a commanding presence. She greets Haspel warmly as an old friend before turning her sharp, curious gaze toward Ken, intrigued by the rumors of the young man who carries such a vast treasure. With a casual gesture, he reveals the contents of his bag, pouring out a shimmering mountain of gems that leaves the room in stunned silence. The sheer volume of the haul is enough to settle any doubts about his capabilities. As they depart the guild and step back into the bustling streets, Haspel leans in close, his voice low and serious. He informs Ken that they have been followed since they left, a revelation that leaves the younger man visibly startled and anxious. He listens intently as Haspel explains that while their pursuer doesn't seem hostile, they are likely connected to the Eustal Merchant Guild, who have been keeping a close eye on their movements since they arrived in East Apon. The realization that they are being watched casts a shadow over their walk through the city's ornate plazas. Despite the lingering tension, they continue through the crowded marketplace, the animals weaving through the legs of busy shoppers. Ken tries to maintain a sense of normalcy, though he remains alert to the eyes he knows are fixed upon them. His mood brightens instantly when he catches the scent of something familiar at a nearby stall, a steaming pot of rice soup. The sight of the soft, white grains brings a surge of nostalgic joy, and he eagerly accepts a bowl, the simple comfort of the meal providing a brief respite from the day's complications. He takes a bite, the warmth of the rice soup spreading through him. The familiar scent of grain and seafood brings tears to his eyes, a poignant reminder of a home far away. Because the flavor is so overwhelming, he can't help but weep openly, much to the confusion of his companion. He declares it's too delicious to be real, even as he eyes the other delicacies laid out before them. Moments later, they move through the bustling market. He stops at a stall, eagerly purchasing fresh produce and supplies from a cheerful vendor while his canine companion waits patiently by his side. With a heavy crate of meat, bread, and rice balanced in his arms, he follows the nobleman through the grand city streets. His guide mentions another guild nearby that he wishes to introduce him to, leading the way toward the harbor. As they reach the waterfront, he stops dead in his tracks, his gaze fixed on a magnificent sailing vessel docked against the massive stone quay. The sheer scale of the ship and the towering bridge above it leaves him shouting in pure amazement. He marvels at the engineering, his voice echoing across the busy docks. This is the Darya River, a vast and vital artery that connects the kingdom's most important cities, serving as the lifeblood of their commerce. His companion explains that the city of Apon has prospered by straddling this great waterway, becoming a hub for advanced shipbuilding. However, he notices something peculiar, a ship effortlessly gliding against the natural flow of the current. Seeing his confusion, the nobleman clarifies that these vessels utilize water pressure to turn their wheels and catch the constant winds that sweep across the river's surface. He further explains that the primary fuel for such marvels is gems, meaning the treasures they carry will be highly valued at the local guild. Hearing this, a new spark of excitement lights up the young traveler's face. He gazes up at the colossal structure before them, his eyes wide with wonder as Haspel identifies it as the Ship Guild. While the Adventurers Guild serves as a hub for daily life, this massive institution focuses entirely on the intricate logistics of river travel and the movement of goods. Stepping inside the bustling hall, they are immediately approached by a man with a friendly wave who recognizes Haspel. This man, Naftis, explains that Diamante had requested his assistance in securing gems for the guild, emphasizing that the flow of the river is the very lifeblood of the nation. The nobleman then introduces the young traveler to Naftis, the official in charge of the guild's operations. As they settle in to discuss business, Naftis agrees to purchase 5,000 gems, prompting the boy to inquire if a simple ticket is all one needs to board the great vessels. He leans in, proposing a unique arrangement. Instead of direct payment, he asks if his credit could be converted into boarding passes, perhaps in bundles of 10 or even a single all-access pass. This suggestion catches his companion off guard, but the nobleman quickly breaks into a grin, admitting that the idea of an unlimited pass is quite clever and that he might want one for himself. Their host lets out a boisterous laugh, noting that while such privileges are usually reserved for the nobility, he is more than willing to craft a special arrangement for them given the scale of their contribution. Because the value of the gems is so immense, Naftis decides to grant them a lifetime pass, leaving the young man beaming with excitement at the prospect of endless voyages across the waters. After concluding their business, the group returns to the city streets, the quiet atmosphere of the afternoon providing a stark contrast to the busy guild hall they just left. However, the peace is short-lived as the nobleman senses they are being watched and urgently commands everyone to run. They bolt down the cobblestone path, their footsteps echoing against the walls as they realize they are being pursued by unknown shadows. Suddenly, a figure descends from above with startling speed, and a sharp crack echoes through the air as a cloud of smoke erupts, catching the boy completely by surprise in the middle of their flight. He watched as Haspel easily apprehended the assailant, only to discover it was a mere child. The boy thrashed wildly, demanding to be released, while Haspel looked on in disbelief, questioning if this small creature was truly a member of the Lilliput race. Fenrir added to the chaos, his booming barks echoing through the alley as the boy pleaded for mercy, insisting he meant no harm. He maintained a firm grip on the boy's collar, demanding to know who had sent him and why they were being followed. When the mention of the Eustal Merchant Guild failed to produce a confession, he pressed further, asking who had commissioned the tailing. The boy could only let out a terrified shriek as Aniray loomed over him like a monstrous predator in his panicked mind, her playful grin appearing far more sinister than intended. The youth stammered out a desperate denial, swearing that no one had hired him for such a task. As the tension began to simmer, his gaze shifted toward Ken, his eyes widening with a sudden, intense realization. He tentatively asked if the young man before him was indeed the legendary monster Tamer he had heard so much about, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and burgeoning hope. He didn't wait for a confirmation before throwing himself into a fervent plea, shouting at the top of his lungs for Ken to take him on as a disciple. The sheer intensity of the request left Ken reeling, his mouth agape in pure astonishment as he struggled to process the sudden turn of events. The young boy with the spiky white hair suddenly bows deeply, his voice ringing out with a desperate plea to become a disciple. Ken recoils in pure shock, his eyes wide as he tries to process the sudden, intense request in the middle of the street. Recovering from the initial surprise, the young traveler scratches the back of his head, stammering that he isn't exactly disciple material. Haspel, ever the calm observer, steps in and suggests they at least hear the boy out before making a final decision. He turns his sharp gaze toward the youth, questioning if the boy had been tailing them specifically because of this ambition. The boy nods vigorously, confirming that his stalking was born of a sincere desire to learn. In response to the questioning, the boy pulls out a small, translucent slime, explaining how he happened upon the creature. He describes the moment it began to glow and follow him, a clear sign of a budding, if untrained, tamer's bond. He continues his story, admitting that despite his bond with the slime, he knows absolutely nothing about the path of a tamer. Having heard rumors of a legendary beastmaster arriving in East Pawn, he had set out with the sole purpose of finding a mentor. After finishing his tale, he looks down at the cobblestones and offers a sheepish apology for his secretive behavior, confessing that he simply lacked the courage to approach such a formidable group directly. He then begs with renewed fervor to be taught the ways of a tamer until he can survive on his own, but Ken gently refuses. He explains that he is still a student of the world himself, and that his diverse group of companions makes taking on a formal apprentice complicated. While Kin remains hesitant, the noble elf speaks up in support of the idea, much to the young man's bewilderment. Haspel notes that adding a member of the small folk to their ranks would certainly make their journey more interesting. He watches as the boy's face lights up with hope, the youth asking if they are truly serious about letting him join. The boy even offers to alter his appearance if his current look is an issue, leaving Kin to wonder just how much more eccentric their traveling party is destined to become. He watches in disbelief as the youth's form shifts and shrinks, a cloud of magic swirling around him until a small child stands in his place. The transformation is seamless, leaving the young man gaping while his companion explains that such illusions are a hallmark of the small folk, a race naturally gifted in the arts of deception and magic. The boy, now appearing much younger and less threatening, confirms his proficiency in both transformation and fire magic, bowing deeply as he repeats his plea for guidance. He promises to be a diligent student, hoping only to learn enough to eventually stand on his own as a true tamer, a request that leaves the swordsman scratching his head in contemplation. Sensing the hesitation, the silver-haired noble interjects, offering to share the burden of mentorship and noting that the boy's innate talent would make him a quick study. He suggests that having an extra pair of hands and a bit of magic could be beneficial for their journey, finally swaying the young man's resolve. With a resigned but friendly smile, he reaches out to shake the boy's hand, officially welcoming him into their fold. The child's face lights up with pure joy as he introduces himself as Kuhin, his enthusiasm nearly matching the wagging tails of the companions gathered around them. Later, the expanded group gathers in a sunlit clearing, where the massive white wolf and the smaller hounds curiously sniff their new companion. Even a centaur-like traveler joins the assembly, creating a diverse troop that seems ready for whatever challenges the road might bring. The weight of this new responsibility begins to sink in, marking a significant shift in the journey as the group officially gains its first disciple. Their path leads them back into the heart of the bustling city, where the towering stone buildings and paved streets hum with the energy of commerce and daily life. They eventually stop before a well-stocked armory, its windows displaying polished breastplates and finely crafted blades that catch the afternoon light. Once inside, the boy is fitted with sturdy new gear, including a protective vest and a specialized dagger that gleams with a sharp edge. The swordsman watches with a sense of pride, noting how the equipment transforms the street urchin into a proper adventurer, while the shopkeeper explains the affinity between the red stone in the hilt and fire magic. He listens intently, a realization sparking in his mind as he considers the link between magical catalysts and his own abilities. He muses that if a stone can amplify fire, perhaps a similar focus could make his own ice spells far more efficient and powerful. The group browses a selection of finely crafted blades, their eyes drawn to the shimmering steel and the blue stones embedded in the hilts. He picks up a small, ornate dagger, admiring how the light catches the blade before declaring his intent to purchase it. Later that evening, a steaming bowl of soup and hearty rice balls are served, the aroma filling the air as the first bites are taken. As they share the meal, the conversation turns to the local cuisine and their upcoming task. They agree to venture out the following day to begin the boy's training in taming monsters. The next morning, the party departs the city gates, with the young apprentice perched securely behind his mentor on the back of the massive white wolf. They surge forward at an incredible speed, the wind whipping past as the boy marvels at the sensation of flying across the landscape. Upon reaching the edge of a dense forest, their progress halts as a small, winged shape glides through the canopy above them. He stares in disbelief at the size of the creature, realizing it is far larger than a typical squirrel, and calls upon his avian companion to intercept it. The great bird of prey immediately tucks its wings and dives, a feathered bolt of lightning aimed at the gliding target. Suddenly, the creature maneuvers mid-air and latches onto the young man's face, catching him completely off guard as his apprentice watches in horror. He smiles warmly at the creature perched on his arm, asking if it would like to join them. The sugar glider chirps a joyful affirmation, and he decides to name his new companion Avian. Seeing this display of skill, the young boy beside him is struck with awe, his eyes sparkling as he admires the older man's effortless charisma. Their mentor steps forward, explaining that the key is to weaken the beast before attempting a pact, a realization that finally makes sense to the aspiring disciple. Taking the advice to heart, the boy lunges after a second creature, his movements frantic as he tries to corner the nimble beast amidst the trees. He finally manages to snatch the creature from the air, shouting his plea for it to become his ally while his friend offers words of encouragement from the sidelines. However, the wild thing resists, squirming and nipping at his hands, prompting the mentor to observe that it hasn't been subdued enough for a successful bond. Undeterred, the youth tries again, his voice ringing out with determination as the small creature leaps toward him in a blur of fur and membrane. This time, the struggle ends in a peaceful silence as the creature settles into his palms, leaving the boy beaming with a sense of profound accomplishment. He gazes down at his new friend, asking for its name, and upon hearing its soft response, he bestows the name Fleur upon the tiny glider. Formally introducing himself, the boy vows to grow even stronger, while his companion celebrates the successful taming of their second forest ally. He follows along as the group discusses their next move. Ken suggests visiting one more location, and Haspel agrees, noting that if they are to travel as a unit, they need familiars capable of serving as mounts. Ken points toward a nearby cave as a potential destination, but Haspel expresses a moment of doubt, wondering if the challenge there might be too much for his young companion. As they set off, riding their loyal canine and wolf companions through the forest, The mention of scales and a mysterious cave leaves the group with a sense of trepidation. The group ventures into a vast, ancient cavern where stalactites hang like frozen teeth from the ceiling. A small, striped creature watches from the shadows as Ken, Fenrir, and the others leave the surface world behind, venturing deeper into the cool, damp earth. Outside, the sun had been beating down on a jagged, rocky plateau, but here, the environment is entirely different. A hand reaches out to touch the rough, cold stone of the cave wall, and an eye snaps open, taking in the transition from the blinding light above to the dim, mysterious world below. He turns to his companions, his eyes bright with a sense of familiarity. He remarks that the terrain reminds him of the karst plateaus and underground caves of his homeland, wondering aloud if such a place truly exists in this world as well. He continues, explaining that their destination is indeed the underground caverns ahead. Kuhin expresses immediate concern, warning that the subterranean world is treacherous and that it is far too easy to lose one's sense of direction. But Haspel steps forward to reassure the boy, claiming this is familiar territory for him and they will be safe. Standing before a dark, narrow cleft in the rock, the young man takes a steadying breath and declares it's time to move. With a final look at the fading light, the group prepares to plunge into the unknown. Inside, the warm glow of a lantern cuts through the oppressive darkness, revealing the true, jagged scale of the cavern. Ken is struck by the sight, feeling as though they've stepped into a genuine dungeon, while Kuhin remains cautious, reminding everyone to stay close to avoid becoming lost in the labyrinthine shadows. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks, his breath catching as he spots something unexpected shimmering in the gloom ahead. Before them, the cave opens into a breathtaking expanse of shimmering, terraced pools. The water cascades down white, mineral-rich steps, creating a subterranean oasis of light and reflection that dwarfs the travelers as they stand at the edge of the massive chamber. He stares at the magnificent sight, his voice barely a whisper as he asks what could have created such a wonder. Beside him, Haspel remains silent, equally captivated by the hidden beauty of the deep. He gazes at the prehistoric creatures wading through the pools, stunned. While he once feared such beasts, he now admits a newfound appreciation for them. He watches as an iguanodon stares back with a steady gaze. It is a docile breed, making it a prime candidate for taming. The beast's presence causes Kuhin to recoil, insisting taming is impossible. Haspel explains the method, leaping onto its back, while Ken offers support. Despite his fear, the youth finds resolve. He agrees to attempt the feat, bolstered by their confidence in his potential. Standing before the herbivore, he realizes its back is far beyond his reach. The height difference draws a laugh from his companions. To solve the height issue, he is offered a simple wooden chair. The boy stares in disbelief, questioning the plan. With a determined shout, he uses the chair to launch himself. He catches the creature's neck, dangling as it reacts. The iguanodon begins to thrash, but he clings desperately to its neck, while the others shout instructions from below. He refuses to let go even as the movements subside, feeling the creature's resistance fade into acceptance. Locking eyes with the beast, he pours his will into a plea for companionship, forging an unlikely bond. He clings to the massive creature's neck, his face beaming with a mixture of relief and pure joy as the beast finally yields to his touch. Nearby, his companions erupt in cheers, their voices echoing through the clearing as they witness the impossible bond being forged between the boy and the prehistoric giant. Still perched atop his new companion, the youth ponderously considers a name, eventually settling on Chaco as the creature lets out a soft, accepting rumble that vibrates through its thick hide. After dismounting, he offers a respectful bow to the iguanodon, formalizing their partnership, while the seasoned warrior looks on with a grin, noting that taming such a large monster is a feat few could manage. The group prepares to move on, securing their gear for the next leg of the journey. Meanwhile, the young traveler with the spiky hair watches with wide-eyed wonder, his excitement bubbling over as he expresses a fervent desire to find and tame even more prehistoric creatures, his small companion chirping in agreement from his shoulder. Their journey soon leads them to the mouth of a dark, damp cavern, where a small, feathered predator known as a mini raptor emerges from the shadows, its sharp eyes scanning the intruders with predatory curiosity. Observing the creature from a safe distance, the traveler wonders aloud if this new find is a carnivore, his gaze fixed on the dark tunnel that likely serves as its nest and hunting ground. The group's mentor begins to outline a capture strategy, demonstrating how to wrap one's arm in thick cloth to bait the creature's bite, a prospect that clearly unnerves the younger members of the party as they prepare for the confrontation. Suddenly, the raptor lunges with startling speed, forcing the young man to react instantly as he grapples with the thrashing, feathered blur, trying desperately to pin its head to the ground and avoid its snapping jaws. The struggle is fierce, with the small beast snapping its jaws and raking its claws against his protective gear, but he holds firm, focusing his intent on calming the wild spirit through sheer proximity and willpower. Finally, the creature's resistance fades, replaced by a quiet submission that allows him to bestow the name Putra upon his newest ally, much to the delight of his watching friends who celebrate another successful taming. He stands amidst his growing pack, watching as the newly tamed mini raptor, Putra, scans its surroundings with sharp, inquisitive eyes. The young man notes how the creature seems to be adjusting to its new master's presence with surprising ease. Nearby, the calico cat Aniray leaps gracefully onto Kuhin's shoulder, prompting a warm word of thanks from the boy. The small feline settles in, already acting as a familiar and protective guardian for its young owner. This spirit of cooperation spreads through the entire group as the diverse collection of beasts, from the massive Fenrir to the smallest cat, begins to bond. They stand together in a rare display of interspecies harmony, ready to follow their human leaders out of the cavern. Amidst this gathering, Kuhen introduces yet another small companion, a fluffy bird he names Pino. With this final addition, the boy beams with pride, realizing he now has 4 loyal creatures by his side, a feat that leaves him overjoyed. As the party begins their trek back, Haspel looks over the impressive line of animals and commends the group on such a significant harvest. The sheer variety of tamed creatures following them is a testament to their recent success in the depths of the wild. He then turns to the others and proposes they head back to East Apon immediately. His primary goal is to ensure that Kuhen's new familiars are officially registered with the proper authorities to avoid any legal complications. This suggestion leaves Kin visibly perplexed, as he questions what registration even entails. His confusion catches the noble off guard, who finds it hard to believe the young man is unaware of such a fundamental process for all tamers. Despite the lack of explanation, they soon arrive at the imposing gates of a fortified administrative center. While the humans prepare for the bureaucracy ahead, Avian offers a playful, mocking expression, seemingly unfazed by the serious atmosphere of the city. The group enters the grand, stone-carved halls of the facility, where the high ceilings and intricate architecture reflect the importance of the administrative work conducted within these walls. Once inside, they are greeted by Diamante, who listens as Kin sheepishly admits his ignorance regarding the familiar registration laws. She offers a knowing smile, assuring them that she will oversee the process personally and help them navigate the requirements. She confirms that every one of the new companions must be officially registered. Kin is taken aback by the sheer number, realizing the scale of the administrative task that lies ahead of them. With a flourish, she produces a daunting stack of forms. She reassures the group that it is merely a matter of paperwork and fees, encouraging Kin to do his best to complete the documentation. He stares at the mountain of paper, feeling the weight of the bureaucracy. She explains that while no harm has been done yet, unregistered familiars can lead to severe legal complications if they ever cause trouble within the city walls. The registration list is extensive, detailing the costs in copper and silver for various types of beasts. As he diligently scribbles away, the conversation turns to the status of their other companions, ensuring that everyone from the messenger bird to the centaur is properly accounted for. She hands over the final set of documents, finalizing the legal transfer. The discussion shifts to the familiars Kuhen inherited, confirming that the responsibility for their registration and care now rests solely with him. Having completed the arduous task, she offers a bright smile of approval. While he looks drained from the mental effort, she mentions that she will also facilitate the exchange of the gems they collected during their travels. As night falls over the city, the stone buildings of East Apon stand quiet under the darkening sky, marking the end of a long day of errands. They finally return to their lodgings, greeted warmly by the rest of the pack. He carries a heavy basket of fresh fruit, a well-deserved reward for the group after navigating the guild's requirements. These are no ordinary fruits, but honey peaches, known for being exceptionally rich in mana. The sweet aroma fills the room as they indulge, the succulent flesh providing a much-needed boost to their energy and spirits. The official records now include a formidable array of ancient creatures, including the black raptor and the iguanodon. Alongside these new bonds, the gems gathered represent the tangible progress they have made on their journey. The young man looked on with genuine admiration, praising the prowess of the centauros. Even the seasoned Haspel admitted that a Tyrannosaurus would be a challenge for him, a sentiment that left the small squirrel-like Shamuel wide-eyed with surprise. Amidst the conversation, the tavern keeper, Diamante, approached with a warm smile, offering a gift as a token of her gratitude for his ongoing help. He couldn't help but think how incredible she was. Seizing the moment, Haspel turned to him with a serious request. If they could help Kuhen capture just one more familiar, the boy would finally achieve his goal of becoming a true beastmaster. He agreed without a moment's hesitation, his face lighting up with a bright, supportive smile. He noted that Kuhen had been working incredibly hard and was progressing much faster than anyone had anticipated. Overwhelmed by the support, the young boy bowed deeply, expressing his heartfelt thanks. With the plan set, Haspel looked toward the future, suggesting they return to the cave the very next day to complete their mission. Before they set out, however, he pointed out the practical need to gather more food supplies, especially now that their group had grown so large. Haspel nodded in agreement, adding that they should also look into crafting a proper saddle for Chaco. As the night deepened, the bustling energy of the day finally gave way to a quiet peace. The companions settled in, with the animals curling up for a well-deserved rest, the soft breathing of the massive wolf and the small cat filling the room as they drifted into sleep.